All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I'm your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. All right, share this out. Tonight's Friday night, Law of One. Let's turn off this overlay and put myself up in full screen here. Welcome, everybody. I see Penny in the audience. Welcome, Penny. Share this out. I didn't have time to share it out. I was trying, my computer is acting really strange, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on with it. I couldn't share the video file for the Law of One. I had to touch screen it. It kept saying my browser kept trying to block it. So, and I've been playing a video game, playing Starfleet Battles, actually Star Trek Federation. I've been playing that, and I think that's a browser-based game, so it's been occupying a lot of space on my browser, so I don't know what's going on there. So I'm going to have to look into that. And then I was trying to do maintenance stuff the other day, and I just realized that, like, everything that I had downloaded is gone. And I'm like, wait a minute. I downloaded a few things pictures I was going to put the image of my book cover up on the screen today. For you guys to see, and I didn't have time. I was trying to hop on my phone to jump into to the studio and do it, but I'll have to do it another time. I just don't have the time to put it up. Even though I have the picture up, I can't share the screen. Actually, I might be able to do that because I have it up. Let me unshare this, and I'll reshare it. Right, so I'm gonna stop sharing that, and I'm gonna reshare the screen, see if I can get it up with this for you guys to see. And there's the cover of my book on the screen. For those of you who are able to see because of the MP4 file, although, there's not so much black on the bottom. That's the rough draft that they sent me that, it'll fit on the cover of the book. So there won't be any black at the top or at the bottom, but that's going to be the cover of the book and the back of the book and the insert of the book. It's going to be everywhere that you look at it, except for I don't know that it'll have my name on the back of the book, but that's the cover of my book, which has gone to Denise. Welcome. Stephanie, welcome. Penny, I said hi, but I don't know if you were here at the time because it looked like you were trying to share everything. So thank you for that. So the book has gone to the printer. I had a conversation yesterday with my publisher, and I have books coming to me now. So 7 to 10 days, I'll have hardcover and softcover copies of my book to be able to hold up and show you guys, which means that if I'm going to be able to have that in 7 to 10 days, that means that it is going to print. So I'm going to talk to them. I forgot to ask when I was talking to them the other day to find out when we can get the website up for people to pre-order. So I'm going to find that out, and I'll link that to you guys that are in the chat. Right. Thank you, Penny. Start tagging people, get them in here. Right. So there's the cover of my book. It's official. The book is published or will be published. It's going to print, and it's going to be published very soon. And you're going to see that online and hopefully in bookstores. You'll see that cover of the book, popping in. Hi, Denise. I saw you over there on YouTube. At least I think it's you, right? It said Denise, and it had a picture, I thought, of your same dog. So, but now you're over on Facebook. So like I said, share this out, please. Let me take this down off the screen here, and I'll reshare the Law of One that I have up here. So hold on, let me do that. So otherwise you guys can't hear what's going on with that. Right, so let's put that back up on the screen, and then put me back up in full screen. All right, so let me close the other window that's over here. But yeah, my computer was acting really strange. I'm not sure what was going on with it. So now I'm gonna have to dig into that and make sure that video game that I'm playing isn't bamboozling me and stealing my information, or But then again, everything freezes everything on the computer. Literally, my camera is still working. And it was stuck in Zoom for over a year, and I had to use my ProGo. No, was it my GoPro? No, it was just another camera. I have one of those too. No, it was actually that. I have two of those. So I literally had that sitting on books stacked up behind the computer. And now I don't have to have that because Zoom charged me for a year. And all of a sudden it cleared up the fact that my camera was stuck in Zoom and would not clear. And I couldn't get it to clear out of Zoom to work for the show, which was annoying as all get out. But now it's fine. But now everything else is acting weird, right? So, okay. So today is really hot, beginning to be really hot over here in Sacramento. I'm in Carmichael, which is 5 miles outside of the state capital, literally in California. We're going to be, for the 4th of July, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of July here in Sacramento is going to be 104 to 108 degrees. So they're saying that it will be for those 3 days. I think it's the 4th or the 5th. It'll cool back down into the 90s, which is average for about this time of year. However, if you guys are going through a heat wave wherever you are, because there's a heat wave that's moving across the whole United States, that's why I posted that video of that comedian, that old guy that was on stage. And he's absolutely right. And I say this all the time. So when he said doing a stand-up monologue, I was dying laughing. Reese, welcome. Because he said, because obviously he's older than me. And he said, let me tell you guys something about climate change, especially you younger folks. Don't worry about it. Right? Everybody started laughing. And he's like, let me tell you why. He says, I've been around a long time, because he's either my age in his mid-50s or above. I couldn't tell exactly because it depends on your road years, right? So he might have been older. And he said, let me tell you why. Okay. Every year in the summertime, it's hot. Okay, because it's true. And I also reposted another one where a guy in Sweden is showing you the news broadcast from 1989, showing the weather for the entire country of Sweden. And then the news broadcast from 2024 on the same date in June. I think it was a few days ago. So today's the 28th. So I think it was the 24th of June, 2024 in Sweden. And he had them side by side. And in 1989, the entire country was green in color. And it had, everything was in Celsius, not in Celsius. Yeah, the opposite of what we use over here. And so it was 22 degrees on average for the entire country of Sweden in 1989, with the entire country showing green. In 2024, the exact same country is now covered in red with extreme heat warning, and the temperature for the entire country on average was 4 degrees cooler than it was in 1989. Climate change, people trying to propagate the lie that it's super hot and that it's a heat wave. Currently, they're saying extreme heat warning in Phoenix, Arizona. I just sent this to my sister the other day. The temperature in Phoenix, Arizona 2 days ago was 104. In June, in Phoenix, Arizona, that is considered winter. Okay? And they were saying extreme heat warning. The people in Phoenix, I used to live in Arizona for 5 years. The people in Arizona roll their windows down and turn off the AC while they're driving their cars when the temperature gets down to 100 degrees. If it gets down below that, under 100, that's wintertime in Arizona. So that's a lie. They're saying extreme heat warning and 100 million people are at risk, and the temperature is no different than it has been forever. And then he also said some summers are hotter than others, right? The comedian. That's the truth, okay? So the truth is, when you look back, in the 80s, they were just getting over the idea, because in the 70s, and it was right around the mid 80s, when all my entire life as a boy growing up in the 70s and the 80s, we were being told that we were going into an ice age and we were all going to freeze and die. Then one day, it just flipped. They stopped saying ice age and started saying global warming the next day, literally. Okay. And they've been propagating this ever since. And the temperature has not gotten higher and higher and higher. Every place that I've lived, and I keep track of, you can look on your phone. Beautiful thing. These phones, you can fact check people without going to a fact check site. Because if you go to a fact check site, the fact check, you have to find out who owns that because they have an agenda. That's why I also posted the other day, I think it's on my Facebook page, the statistic that this guy is talking, and I think it's his wife, and she's pulling out a barbecue. It's obviously to get around algorithms. She's pulling out a barbecue and was cooking in the driveway. And meanwhile, it literally says 97% of all scientists agree with the person that is funding them and funding their research. So 97% of all scientists will say whatever the person who is giving them the most money wants them to say. Okay. That's an actual fact, right? So the same thing happens with all the news agencies and television networks. You have 4 companies out there, BlackRock and a couple of others, that independently they all own between 10 and 20% stock in just about every company worldwide. Not a joke. You can look it up. If you take 3 of those companies together, they own a controlling interest in every company worldwide. So if you take all 4 of those companies, if the CEOs meet together and decide a narrative that everybody is going to push, like this DEI stuff that's going on now around the world, and this green agenda stuff that's going on around the world, everyone's going to push it because collectively they own that company, it's controlling interest in that company. So if they're a syndicate behind the scenes and you don't know about it, which they are, some of the exact same people who are on the board of directors for BlackRock are on the board of all the board of directors from all 4 of those companies, which means they control the vote of what those companies control. And those people are the 1% that control the world. And they tell every news agency what to say. They tell every corporation what to say, every channel on television what to say, everything that they want because they own a controlling interest. But on the face of it, when you look up the companies, you don't notice that unless you're paying attention to who owns 10% and 15% and 20%. If you take 15% times 4, what is that? That's over 50%. Do you understand that? If it's 20%, if 15 to 20% that each one of those 4 companies alone owns, that's just 4 of them. Okay, so my point is, what if there's 5 or 6 or 7 of them? That means that they own a controlling interest in every company that is on the stock markets worldwide. That means that the board of directors are them. And they decide what the company does, the direction the company is going in, and what their message is to the world. You need to realize this. Look it up. I assume I'm lying to you, and I've made it up and looked that stuff up. Okay. Yeah, Stephanie, are you talking in German again? You are. That's funny. I get stuck in that too. When I'm doing that, I'll start typing to people in German or Swedish or Spanish because you just continue doing it. And if you're speaking to your phone, forget it. I'll just start talking in German. She does that to me a lot too. That's funny. That's hilarious, right? And it looks like what you're saying, Stephanie, looks like you literally it's from thank you, Denise. I cut my beard off. I decided that it was making me look too old. I love having that long beard. And if I'm not going to dye it, I may even take my mustache back off and just go with the beard underneath my face. But yeah, I mean, obviously I look younger. You don't look so old when you don't have a big white gray beard on your face, right? So yeah, I decided about 3 days ago that it was needed to come off, and I just took it off, took it down to this, and I figured I'd leave this and decide. And I haven't decided yet. I'm probably going to take the mustache off and just go with the beard down here and trim it down like I did before and get rid of this here and just have the bottom part beard on my face and then and do that. I was like that for a couple of years. I don't know if you guys remember. Some of you, Denise, you might remember. Penny, you might remember because you guys have been following me and working with me for a few years. So you might remember when I was doing that. There's pictures of me out there. But I decided this is where I'm going, especially my book's coming out. I'm going to be doing more talking on other people's shows and things like that. So I figured instead of looking like, because some people will see me as Gandalf and then other people will see me as a homeless guy. And you know what I mean? So I just decided, clean up. Like I said, maybe I'll take the mustache off too, so people can see my lips. And that's why I did it before. Take the top part off here and this part here, so people trust you more when you're talking. And you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. You know, who knows? I mean, it doesn't take me long. 3-4 months, I have a full beard again, right? Rick said, I just opened my eyes, man. I'll be back, right? Good morning, Rick. Okay, so let's go ahead. Like I said, share this out, guys. So there's an agenda that they're pushing, and this goes to the agenda of the Orion Crusaders and trying to get everybody to believe and buy into something. Global warming is not happening. And the truth is they're going to have to be quiet about it. Otherwise, they're going to have to stifle all car companies and make it illegal for people to sell the hydrogen cars, because the hydrogen cars are going to clean all the carbon out of the air. And it's going to change the global climate in less than 40 years. If everybody on the planet starts selling them worldwide, it will not take long. We will have the skies clear with no smog anymore, because there is no smog. So as we replace the combustion engine and get more people driving that, there is all EPA, they're going to probably come out and lie about it, but all EPA investigations for the last 45 years, because that's how long they've been testing the hydrogen engine, by the way, and especially in the last 35 years. I know that personally because I met a guy who was testing one when I was 22. So literally, they've done so many tests that it literally cleans the atmosphere. As you're driving, 1 hour of driving a hydrogen car cleans the amount of carbon that one human breathes in 30 days, right? And I think it's even more than that. It's a huge amount. So the more people that are driving those, the more it's going to combat all of the smog that's being put into the atmosphere from all the cars. So you're going to see in your lifetime that, but they're going to have to try and get rid of it, because they will lose the climate agenda. So if they don't, watch how quickly in the next 5 to 10 years they start saying we're going back into an ice age. Everything's going to freeze. We're all going to freeze and die. We have to do something to warm up the atmosphere, right? So they're going to want us to put more carbon in the air to warm up the atmosphere, right? So let's see what the agenda is, because according to most of these people, like the here in the United States, the what they call the squad of progressives that are ultra progressives in the Democratic Party, they literally have told us that we're going to be dead in less than 10 years. That we got 2 to 3 to 5 years left, and the whole planet's going to die. We're all going to die, right? And then they'll change that in 2 to 5 years. They'll go, we have 10 years. And then as they get older, eventually they'll just get quiet about it as things change. But that's what they've been doing. I remember when I was a kid, they literally said that we were going to have an ice age in less than 10 years. Then the next day they said, global warming, and we're going to be dead in less than 10 years. And it's been 35 years since they started saying that. They just push it out every time it gets too close. They go, well, we did new studies come out, and it's what we're doing is actually kind of working. So it's going to be further out than what we expected. And you'll never reach the goalpost because they keep pushing it out. But they want more and more and more and more and more money. And they want you to do more and more and more things that aren't doing anything. Literally, if you were here in the United States or anywhere around the world watching the debate last night, they had that conversation where the things that we as America are doing and how we're doing, we're working to quill all of the stuff around the world when we were in the Paris Climate Accord, and Donald Trump took us out of the Paris Climate Accord when he was the president, and that was the worst thing that ever happened to this planet. Well, Donald Trump answered that by saying, look, the reason that I took us out of the climate accord is because we were paying $100 billion. No one else was funding that idea at all. We were doing all this stuff back home here to lower our carbon footprint. All the other people in the Paris Climate Accord were not doing anything, no money, and not doing anything to change what they were putting out to the rest of the world. So it was a sucker deal for us to be in it. That's why I got out of it. Well, Joe Biden was bragging because he got us right back in it, which means we're paying another $100 billion to those people, and no one else. China, and he's claiming that America is the biggest producer of garbage and carbon in the air, which is an absolute lie. The top 3 people on the face of the earth are China, India, and Brazil. You can look that up. The United States is somewhere around 50 or 60, believe it or not. Okay. But if you look at, well, we have more people than anybody else, then you can push us up to like 9 or 10. Okay, I get that. Let's just say per capita, right? Still, we're not the number one most wasteful country. We are not putting as much crap into the atmosphere and into the oceans and everything else in landfills and destroying the world as much as China, India, and Brazil. Okay. Those countries are literally 85% of all of what's doing damage to this earth, just with the three of those countries combined. Okay. If you take any of those countries up against the United States alone, all of those countries are putting out far more than the United States. Okay. So we're not the top dog. We're doing things that are trying to change our environment here. People are recycling. Some people in some states are like, screw you guys are hippies, right? But people are going to sustainable things. We're seriously doing a lot of the good here, but it doesn't help if China has just got factories burning everywhere with smog going up into the atmosphere and they're throwing all their garbage and sewage out into the ocean. And you've got plastic floating to America from China and washing up on our shores over here. You don't have American garbage washing up on our own shores or anyone else's, but we do have China and India's garbage washing up on our shores. Okay, so if we're the most wasteful, are you going to try and now say, well, our garbage goes out and goes out to them and their garbage comes here? So weirdly that the tide will bring the garbage from China to America, and now you're trying to tell me there's some avenue where all of our tide goes out, and that's going out to China, and as we're trading, and there's some sort of trade route in the ocean that is pulling our garbage out to them and their garbage out to us. Come on, man. If you buy that, it's the same I just saw on, and then we'll get into the law of one, but it's the same I just saw somebody on Facebook saying that if you say a convicted liar, won the election, that's like saying a person who cheated at a sporting event actually won the game. And I was like, and they were talking about Donald Trump, and I was like, I answered that with, if you seriously think that there is any politician anywhere in the world who's not lying, you're fooling yourself. And if we outlawed lying and made it illegal, that a politician could not lie, you would have every politician in every country arrested and put in jail, because none of them tell the truth. And in that religion of evil. And if you believe that what I'm saying to you is not true, then you truly are brainwashed, because none of those people speak the truth. Every one of them lies every time they're breathing. Okay. You have to realize that. Every one of them. And that's why I say be careful with the fact checker website you go to, because it leans one way or the other for either the progressive party in your country, whatever you call that, or the conservative party in your country, whatever you call that, unless you live under a dictatorship or a monarchy. Okay. Otherwise you have to, those factions. And all fact check websites are slanted and controlled by both of those people to say the other person's lying to and we're telling you the truth. Okay. And all of them are lying to. So Stephanie says, people want America to start manufacturing for America, right? Let me put that up on the screen so you guys can see that. Manufacturing for America, but that would be problematic, not helpful. American manufacturing goods would be very expensive and would be pollutive. That's actually not true. It's not true. They want you to believe that because they have to pay people more money here, okay? So you have to realize that if you're buying a product that was made in China, you're buying a product that was made by actual slaves. You have to look into that and know that. They're not paying people in China to build all of the products that are shipped to America. They have people that are slaves in that country. They're called Uyghurs. And that's from another country where they're swooping them up and they're forcing them into labor. The same thing happens in Mexico. The same thing happens in most third world countries. So when you have manufacturing going on in these places, corporations are going to tell you, I'm telling you right now, if we have Americans make it, we're going to have to make you pay more money. Really? So then what if we just don't buy your product? Do you see? So you're buying into the idea that they're selling you to control you. The only reason that you're getting that price good is because we're outsourcing it and we can charge you less money. That's not true, because Because, well, they are charging you less money, but they're making a higher profit. That's why they're really doing it. Okay. So you're getting it at a cheaper price, but the price that you're complacent with by buying that, whether you're aware of it or not, and the law of the world says that if you are complacent with something, you're just as guilty. You can't claim in this country, you can't claim, I didn't know that was a law, and then not go to jail. So the truth is that you could be tried in a court of law in the world court because you're buying things from China and they have slave labor manufacturing it. But nobody's going to arrest everybody because they need your money. But the truth is you're complacent with that. And that when you buy something, hey, this is made in China, but you know what? It only cost me $1. If I would have bought it here in America, it would cost me $20. Yes. And for that $20 that you paid, you're going to keep your economy running better because somebody in this country is going to make money and spend it in this country. Okay. And if you don't like the price of it, then you tell the corporation, I would love to buy your product, but I'm not buying it because you guys are used to making $1 trillion a year, having slave labor make your product. You're not happy with making $500 billion a year and charging me the same amount of money because you consider that losing money. The mindset of rich people is if I have a stock portfolio and that portfolio is worth $100 million, I have $100 million. The truth is you have no money, zero, until you cash in that portfolio by selling it and putting that money in the bank. So if the stock market crashes and that $100 million is now only worth $500, or $100 million worth $500 million, you didn't lose $500 million because you never cashed it in. You still have $500 million. That's not how they think. They think whatever money is on paper or a computer is how much that I am worth right now. And it doesn't matter whether they sold it or not. Okay. That's their idea. So if they're making products in another country and they're only paying their workers 50 cents a day to manufacture that, so because of that, they're giving you a discount of about $5 on that product, they're making all that profit. They don't want to have to pay you a prevailing wage to make it because they can't have the highest profit. That's just like right now, everybody will tell you that the economy of the United States is the greatest that it's ever been, and we're making all kinds of money. Joe Biden said this at the debate. Not just him, but everybody who says this about the economy. Look at the stock market. It's higher than it's ever been. Who's making that money? 1% of the population of this planet is making all of those profits off the stock market. No one else is. The people of this country are not making a profit off of that stock market at all. Okay. The people in this country that are way down on the list and they're sitting on a portfolio, and the rich people know that. If you look at the transactions that go on by the rich people, you see them selling product off to bank the cash, but they're telling you to keep your money invested in that portfolio because if it crashes, they don't care. They sell off before everything crashes. They don't like people looking at the stuff that they sell. They sell off before things crash because they have insider information and they know what's going to crash. So they know ahead of time what's going to happen, and we're not going to make our quota, and everybody's going to start selling their stock, so they dump it. Then when that happens, you lose the money that you have invested because you never cashed anything in. They cashed it all in at high, and guess what? When you get scared and you're trying to get out of the market, who do you think's buying those from that stock prices, stock market values from you? Those same rich people that just sold at $400 a share are now buying it from you when you're scared at $20 a share. So they then collect it and put it back into their portfolio because they just banked $200 million. Now they end up with the same amount of stock and they still have $100 million in the bank and they have $100 million worth of the stock. Then when they wait for about a week or a day and the stock price goes back up because everybody's buying the stock again, which the rich people are, they drive the price back up. And guess what? Then you go, I better get back in and start buying. Who do you think is selling you their stock? The rich people at a higher price. That's how they make money. I just read 2 books. They're sitting right here. Let me pull them out. I think they're both sitting right here. They are sitting right here. Let me pull them out. I just read these. You can get these, and they don't cost very much money because Charles Payne literally is giving them away. I just read these two books, Unstoppable Wealth or Unstoppable Investor, right? Unbreakable Investor by Charles Payne, and Charles Payne's Unstoppable Prosperity. He explains, this is one of the wealthiest men on the face of the earth, by the way. He explains the process of how the stock market works for the rich people to stay rich, okay? And that is literally the process. So they buy up the stock, and then they sell it to you. And now my camera's crooked. I banged something, and I'm off kilter. Oh, well, hell with it. So you have to realize that when you, I don't like the slavery in China, Stephanie says. I don't like the slavery in China. I don't like anything about how China does things, blah, right? I'm just saying that that we messed up becoming dependent on China, agreed. And it would be a huge adjustment to switch back to American manufacturing. Well, let me explain how that works, okay? If you're making things in America, you flood the market with our product, and it becomes cheaper. You don't believe me? Go back in time and look at gas prices when Donald Trump was the president of the United States. When Donald Trump was the president of the United States, the average gas price in the United States of America was 98 cents. Not here in the state of California because we have a gas tax. So we have a $2 gas tax. So if it was 98 cents or $1, the rest of the country, we were paying $3 a gallon. Gas prices right now, I just went and got gas. The gas prices were $4.80. Some places over $5. And that's actually low. Last year at this time, it was almost $7. Okay. The reason being is this. Currently, the state of California is not manufacturing any gasoline in this country. Okay. Because of all the mandates by Joe Biden, we are no longer manufacturing oil. We're no longer manufacturing gasoline. We're no longer manufacturing any natural gas or any lubricants in the United States. So we're buying all of it from overseas. Okay. So what you don't realize is the reason that the gas prices go up is because all of that gasoline is literally sold at a price that OPEC decides on. And they regulate supply and demand. They regulate the amount of oil reserves that there are on the entire planet to keep the price of oil high. When America has to buy from them, they raise the price from $40 a barrel to $130 a barrel. So America has to pay $130 for every barrel of gasoline that they buy. And then they have to put it in a tanker and sail it from either the Middle East or China or Venezuela and sail it across to the United States, either the East Coast or the West Coast, depending on where it's going to, in big containers. Who do you think is paying the gas for that container to travel at 5 miles an hour all the way through the Suez Canal or through the Panama Canal or both to get to the United States to then pump it out and then for them to go back? You don't think that company that is from another country is paying the bill for that, do you? No, that is factored into the price. Do you see? So when we're manufacturing here at home, we have to pay workers $40 to $50 an hour to be roughnecks out there mining the oil, drilling the oil and pumping it out of the ground. But then when we have so much oil here and we're manufacturing our own gas, because it's our own gas, we don't have to pay all those high prices. We don't have to pay anything for the barrel of oil except for the cost to the company for that. And the company will undercut the price from $180 a barrel and make a deal with the American government. That's what Donald Trump did with oil companies that are American owned. We'll buy it from you for $50 a barrel. They're making all kinds of money because right now they're not making anything if America's not drilling. So they're making $50 a barrel, and that drives the price down from OPEC. They have to compete with America because otherwise we're shipping our oil out to other countries. So now they have to lower their prices. So the global gas prices get lowered by determining by who controls the market. So America being the biggest consumer on the face of the earth, China is becoming pretty close to that. But because America is the profit of the world, without the United States paying for all these countries and all of their products, they go out of business. They would be far smaller with money because they would only have their own people to sell it to. You have to understand how global economics works. So if we manufacture things in this country, we have to pay people in the country more money because the cost of living is higher. But that lowers the cost of living as we go because we're no longer paying it to be shipped all the way over from other countries. And then people want our product and we won't pay them a tariff. Because if they make us pay a tariff to get into their country, we do the same thing here. And that is what Donald Trump did to China. He said, look, you're making us pay you the $10,000 every time a ship shows up. We're going to do that to you over here. And all of a sudden, China stopped charging that money. At first, they said no. So Donald Trump slapped the tariffs on them. Okay. And that meant that they had to pay us to sell their product in our country because that's what they were doing to us. Guess what happens? Competitive pricing. They start lowering the price because they want a better deal because they don't want to pay us so much money to bring the product here. You need to take a civics class and take an economics class, and especially a world economics class, because you need to understand how global economics works. So in the very beginning, they're going to cry and tell you we're going to lose our ass and we're going to have no money and we're going to have to charge you $1 billion. Then you go, then I won't buy your shit. I'll buy it from the company who wants to sell it at cheaper. And they can't control everybody 100%. You're going to have companies that are going to go, you know what? I would rather make $50 a barrel of oil to make the gasoline in America because I'm making money than to stay with the rich people and say, nope, I'm with them. You either pay us $150 a barrel or we're not selling you any oil. Okay, then we'll go to someone else and we'll start up new companies with people who are willing to do that. And that's what the threat was. The same thing happened with the car companies. They were manufacturing their cars and they were taking the companies out of the United States and going to ship their cars from building in Mexico and in China to the United States. And Donald Trump said, okay, if you do, I'm going to treat you as if you're a foreign country. You're no longer an American company. You're now a foreign company, and you have to pay the same tariffs that everyone else pays. You don't get to manufacture your car in another place and not pay Americans to manufacture your car and then charge Americans all of that money for your car and not have to pay a tariff. Guess what? All the car companies started opening the manufacturing back in the United States. So it cut into their profit, but they ended up making more money because they make all the profit from America. So they don't make $1 trillion a year, but they might make $100 billion or $500 billion a year instead of that trillion that they're running for the carrot. But you're not making that money until you make it, is my point of talking about the stock market. So just because you think you can make money by selling something and having slaves build it, if we do that, we stand to gain a profit of $100 million more a month profit. Now, if somebody forces you to build it in America, you lose that $100 million of profit. But the truth is, then you get the contract to sell to Americans. So you don't make $1 trillion a year, you make $900 billion a year. You should be okay with that because you didn't cash in anyways. If you don't like it, leave the country, move to China, and then come into this country. But then we're going to charge you the tariffs that we charge other people to sell here. So you're going to end up losing money no matter what. So you can either just stay at home and make a lot of money, and everybody started manufacturing here. Harley Davidson said they were leaving to go to England. They were literally taking their company and leaving America and going to the UK. And Donald Trump said the same thing. Then I'm going to charge you a tariff to get those manufacturing motorcycles, which is the number one selling motorcycle in the United States. Back in the United States, we'll go with an Indian or other companies that are inside the United States. And you watch, no one will buy your product. They'll start buying the product that's here in the United States. They changed their mind. So you have to call their bluff and get in their face. So the same thing goes with if you don't buy the product. I don't buy anything that's not manufactured, that is manufactured in China. I haven't bought a Chinese product unless I was unaware of it since I was 18 years of age and learned about global economics. Okay. And because of I know what the Chinese are trying to do to the global economy and to the United States. I'm not buying their product. They have slaves building it. I wouldn't eat tuna for 20 years until tuna companies started making sure to don't kill dolphins and actually show people and let people actually study them and watch them. And they had to put a stamp on their thing that says no dolphins, no dolphin meat, and no dolphins injured in manufacturing this tuna. because myself and so many other Americans got behind that idea and said, we're not buying from you if you're going to be catching and killing dolphins, because their brain is bigger than ours. They're more intelligent than we are. So that's like killing a human being and putting human meat in there and selling it to people and saying, hey, you know what? They got in the way. Who cares? Eat it. So people said no. That changed the entire industry. Did they lose money in the very beginning? Yeah, I'm sure they lost the profits that they thought they were going to get. But guess what? They realized they were going to go out of business, so they changed their motif. And then they're still making money, and they're still profits, and they're not going out of business in 40 years. Do you understand? So you have to bite the bullet. They count on your greed. They count on you going, screw it, I don't care, man. Because that's the way most people are. I have no idea. I don't care. Who cares? That's way over in China. I'm not a slave. What if you were? Do you see? You have to actually start looking at the world from the eyes of, yeah, well, you know what? I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it. That's what they want you to think. I don't vote because there's nothing I can do about it. They control everything anyway, so why should I even vote? If everybody actually did vote, they wouldn't be in charge. But the fact is that out of the 380 million Americans, less than a third of the population actually votes. Think about that. Right? So here's a for instance. Kamala Harris here in the state of California had the lowest rating of anyone in the history of her office. She still got reelected. You know why? Because everybody, when they called and did a poll, said they didn't like her, but none of those people were voting. Do you understand that? So she got voted into office by the 1/3 or less of the population of the state of California. So she got into office. Same thing with the presidency. Okay. There's 380 million Americans in the last election, which had more people voting than the history of the United States. There was 180 million people that voted. That's 1/3 of the entire population that was capable of voting, voted. 1/3. Do you understand that? If 3/3 or 2/3 or 90% of everybody in this country, or any country for that matter, actually went to the polls, the will of the people is what's going to decide it, not the will of 1/3 of the people or the two parties' constituents, those people who are their hardline people who follow them. That's what goes on. Okay? That's what goes on. And they call them, in those parties, they call those people who actually do that stuff useless idiots. Okay? So you need to realize that you have to make those, you have to make concessions. Yes, you have to decide what's more important to you, human life or buying something cheap, because then you're complacent. This is why the third world countries say, death to America. All of you are complacent because you're allowing your government to do this. Okay? Because you're not doing anything to stop your own government. You're not even paying attention to what your government's doing around the world, so you don't know what they're doing. And so because of that, you're sitting back over here going, I don't understand why those yahoos out there in the middle of that desert don't like us. They're just idiots. They're just those little people out there way over 5,000 miles away. What the hell is their problem? They hate America. So you get your information from the news, which is just run by the people that run the government, and they're told what to say. And so they're like, those evil people out in that desert are trying to kill us. They hate us and they're blowing us up and killing us, and we need to go over there and bomb them. And then when you have them on camera, they're like, we're bombing those people and we're killing those people because they are evil, and they are trying to run the world, and they're murdering all of our people over here. And they go, yeah, they would say that because they're evil. And you have no idea what's going on. I'm not saying that they're 100% right, but you don't know that, and most people don't. Okay? Don't get me wrong, because I'm not one of those people that's siding with, like, say, Hamas. Okay? I know who trained Hamas, and I know why they were trained. Okay? Federal government of the United States of America and the English government paid money to have Hamas trained. Okay? So everything that you think is the enemy that's going on around the world is people that they decided were in power and gave them training and paid for their training and put them out there to do what they're doing. You need to realize that. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, all of those people, they didn't exist until the deep state of the world, the same 1%, decided they needed some useful idiots in that country to kill people. And they rounded up a bunch of people and said, round up some of your people and we'll pay all the money that you need. And we'll send our people over there to train you. And that's what they did. You can look that up. It's not a conspiracy theory. You can look that up. Okay. So you need to realize what you can do and how can you fix this. Everyone says, well, the machine is so big. The dragon is so vast. We can't do anything about them. We can't stop them. The way you stop them is from the bottom. You can't go to the top now. They're propagating. That machine is designed to keep itself alive at all levels. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to get involved in the grassroots in your town, in your city, in your county, in your state. You have to get involved at the bottom and watchdog those people and let them know that you have eyes on them. Not going to allow it to happen. Teach your children, teach them to teach their children, and so on. And then you start informing people and educating people so that they can do the same thing, because that spreads. And eventually, when you have enough people that are saying, "Hey, look what they've done with the people hating America. They taught all the kids you're a racist because of your race, no matter what your race is, and that you hate America." And now these people are in their 20s and going into their 30s, and some of them are in their 30s, and they've been indoctrinated all around the world to hate the country that they live in because they went to the grassroots and started training them as children. Okay. The Nazis did the exact same thing. So did the Russians in Russia when they back in the day when the Bolsheviks took over and made the whole place a communist country. You brainwash the children when they're easily manipulated, and when they grow up, they become partisans for you. The same thing goes if you want to fix it. You go back down to the children and you start the long game and you fight against that indoctrination. How do we do that? Pull your kids out of public school. Guess what? Oh, no, that's going to cost me thousands of dollars. No one can afford that in America. That's what they count on. But I'll tell you what, if everybody in America pulled their kids out of public school, all the cool school systems would fail. They would have nobody there. They would be begging for money and to bring people back. And how would they, and what would happen? What would be the reaction? They would change their fucking ways and let you watchdog them. We're going to have a parent sit in every class, and we're going to have those rotate so you can't get your people sit in every class, and they're going to pay attention to everything that you teach, and it's all going to be filmed. We're going to put cameras on you. Oh, no, big brother, huh? Yeah, until we know that you guys aren't indoctrinating our children anymore. Absolutely. Either that or you're going to have to be taught in public. So you have to change the laws, and the only way that happens is it hurts in the beginning. Can't do any more damage than what COVID did to our kids when they weren't learning anything during COVID for 3 years. So what's the difference if everybody in the country pulled their kids out of school and said, that's it, we're putting them in a private school, the private schools would make a fuck ton of money and they would expand. Then you would have to tell them, you guys got to lower their prices. Well, if they're going to sell things, I was a retail manager and went to school, to management school, to learn how to be a manager. If you can sell a product and it goes for $500 and you undercut everybody and sell it for $250, in theory, you're losing $250 on every single product. But if because you're selling it at $250, you get 90% of all the sales, you're going to make 90% more profit than you would selling it at $500 a piece. Do you understand how that works? Supply and demand. You have the supply and you create the demand, and no one's buying from those guys anymore. I'm not buying from you for $500. That guy's selling the exact same product for $250. Why would I buy from you? They're going to lower their prices. It takes one person to start doing that, and then everybody will lower their prices. When the stock market crashed back in the 90s, was it the 90s? The 2000s, early 2000s under Barack Obama. When the market crashed because of the housing market crashing, I remember $500 leather jackets went on sale for $100, $75 for the same jacket the day before was $500 because nobody had any money. The market was tanking and everybody was going to lose their business because nobody was spending any money. And every business needed people to buy products to keep themselves alive. So instead of making 500% profit, they lowered it by 300% and still made a profit to stay alive. Why? Because the people stopped buying their products. So they had to lower the price. If everybody in the world, in the United States, wants the housing market to go down, don't buy any houses. Refuse to buy their houses, don't get any loans. You're going to find the housing prices are going to drop drastically because the banks are not going to want to sit on that fucking property. Guess what? During that time when the housing market crashed and the banks were grabbing everybody's houses and foreclosing on them, my buddy who's dead now, who was my roommate, he bought a house that before the stock market crashed, before the housing market crashed, was worth $570,000. He bought that house for $73,000 because he saw that the market was going down. And he was had money in the bank and wanted to buy a house, but he was saving to try and get $500,000. The market crashed and he waited, and he started talking to the people on the market, and he waited. And when they got desperate, they lowered the prices because they needed to get out from under. Two of my friends bought almost $1 million house for less than $100,000 in that time period. Okay. And guess what? Both of them sold those houses 3.5 or 4 years later, sold the same houses for $500,000. Each one of them did that. Do you understand that? Because they were conscious enough to say, I'll wait. It's the same thing. I do this, and I've done this my entire life. When DVD players first came out, they were like $1,500 here in the United States, and that was 40 years ago. My buddies were like, you got to buy one of these. They're the greatest thing on the face of the earth. And I'm like, I'll wait. Well, dude, you have no idea. What are you going to wait for? I'm going to wait for the price, and I'm going to buy one less than $100. They're never going to be that price. So everybody bought all of them. And the DVDs, the same thing. The DVDs were going for like $120 for a DVD to play. I waited 3 years, and I bought a DVD player for $100, and all the DVDs were $15. So they paid thousands of dollars. My stepfather bought a big screen television that was a 48-inch television. It cost him $1,500. I waited like 6 years. I bought the same exact television for $79.99. Do you understand that? So if you're driven to have to buy it right now to be the very first person to get it, you're going to pay all kinds of money. It's the same thing with Teslas. Teslas were $100,000. Teslas in 2 years are going to be selling because no one's going to want them, and they're going to have all these cars they built. Mark my words, you're going to be able to pick up a Tesla for about 40 or 50, probably 35,000 or less. No one wants it if it's that low price. The Saturn company, when they first came out with their car, you can look this up. When the Saturn car went on the market, they were selling them for $11,000 to $13,000. Nobody wanted to buy them because all other cars at the time were $45,000. There's got to be something wrong with that Saturn. It must be a pile of crap. I'm not going to buy it. So the CEO of the company said, okay, we'll fix this. Worldwide, or at the time, United States wide, and then they went global. Nationwide, he sent out a memo to every single manager of every single Saturn store and said, before you open tomorrow, I want all prices on every car to be changed to $45,000. And they said, what are you doing? No one's buying them at $10,000 and $12,000. He said, just because they think it's too cheap. They think something's wrong with it. Change the price to $45,000. Since that day, Saturn has been the number one selling automobile in the United States. Expectations, because they drum into your head, you get what you pay for. So if you pay cheap, you're going to get cheap and garbage. Okay? Do you see how that works? So the truth is, he raised the price. They were putting out a car that was cheap so that everybody in the common man could buy the Saturn. No one wanted it because they thought there was something wrong with it. So they just said, okay, raise the price. They raised the price, and everybody flocked over there to get that because it was like $5,000 cheaper than a Mustang. And they were good cars. They still are. Okay, so you have to look at that, right? Oh, I don't know who you're talking to, Rick. I don't know if you're talking to me or what right there. Deborah, welcome. Deborah Anderson's out there. So, and Joanne, hi. I put my glasses back on, and now I can see that there's other people in the chat. So you have to realize, right, the same thing Joanne says, it's going to be the same with electric cars, really high prices in the UK. Well, Joanne, just so you know, hopefully I'm saying that right because you have an E at the end of your name. Hope it's Joanne and not Joanne, right? Because some people said Joanna. Joanne, don't buy an electric car. They're going to go away. Here's the inside scoop. Okay. This is true. This is a true inside scoop. Here in the United States, the manufacturing, so I don't know what's going on in your country, but you guys are not going to be very far behind. Here in the United States, I've literally talked to people who own stock in multiple car companies in the United States to where they get dividends. They're high earners. They get paid, so they get information from the corporation that they read. In the next 6 to 8 months, in less than a year, you're going to see Ford Motor Company and all the big three motor companies in the United States, which they're usually in partnership with you guys in Europe. So know that everybody in Germany and France and probably England are moving to hydrogen vehicles because they know that it's a disaster. This electric car is a disaster. And no one wants to buy them. Here in the United States, people are turning them in. They buy them and they turn them back in a couple of months. So all of them are going to start rolling out a hydrogen vehicle because it cleans the atmosphere. And the only thing that comes out of the exhaust pipe is water. And it's sterilized water. So there's nothing bad about it. And the only thing they can say is, what's going to happen in winter when it's freezing and that water's coming out? Well, you mean like rain coming down that turns into ice or snow? We're already dealing with that. And you already have tires that deal with that. So if there's water coming out of the back of the tailpipe and it freezes on the ground, you should be driving with snow tires anyways, or chains, which is designed to break the ice and black ice so you don't crash. So only people that don't realize that we already have tires and chains that go on our tires worldwide to be able to drive on frozen ground because of sleet and snow and ice. And then you just don't get to drive, 80 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. You have to drive slower. That's what you have to do anyways, as it is now. So the water is going to evaporate and it's going to run off into the drainage systems, which is going to add purified water to the water that's going to be flowing around the world. Okay. So there's insider trading for you. You should look into your companies in your country, right? And find out if you talk to somebody who owns a stock in or know somebody that works for one of the manufacturers over there in the UK, you're going to find that they're also working on that. Okay. Because it is clean fuel and you don't have to have these cars that weigh 3 times what the cars weigh now. I said, watching the studies where they took a Ford pickup that was an electric one, and they crashed into the barriers that are set up now to deflect the vehicle so that it can't go through to the oncoming traffic. And all of the cars now, no matter what speed, they hit that barrier and they don't go over the top and kill everybody on the other side. They went through 3 of those barriers, and the vehicle barely slowed down because it's so heavy with all those batteries. So they already knew that. Then let's talk about all the bridges and overpasses all around the world that have weight limits. And now you're going to have, if everybody goes to electric, you're going to have cars that are now 3 times heavier and the same traffic on all these bridges. So they're going to have to reinforce. It was going to cost us trillions of dollars in every country to upgrade all of the infrastructure to be able to support the weight from these vehicles. They weren't telling you that because they were being pushed on you. So you need to look into that. Hydrogen is the way everybody's going to be rolling out in the next few years. And that's going to be the way to go in the future, is going to be hydrogen. Okay, so we never even started with the Law 1, and here we are an hour in. I apologize, because we're talking about the global economics, but it plays into what's going on because the Raw is warning about the Orion Crusaders, and they are literally the what is causing all of this to happen. So yeah, Joanne, look into hydrogen vehicles. You're going to find here in America they're already talking about that. Hold on, I'll be right back. I got to stop my mother. She's scratching herself, and she'll keep scratching until she bleeds. She's 80. I'll be right back. I should have played Raw for you while I was doing that. Well, stop. Okay, there you go. You go alone. Watch TV, okay? Sorry, I should have played Raw for you. But yeah, you guys should look into that. Wherever you are in the world, they're going to start going to hydrogen because it's clean fuel. It cleans the air as it drives. I talked about this earlier. You might not have been here. As you drive, your car pulls in air, right? And now my mother's going back to try and scratch her leg. So hold on. I got to stop her from doing it or she'll be bleeding in a minute. Mother, stop. Stop it. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Watch TV. Leave your leg. Leave it alone. So I apologize. If she keeps this up, I'm going to have to stop because she's paying more attention to her leg. So what happens is it cleans the air. So there is no carbon that's going out into the atmosphere like there is now from the gas cars. There is no particles that you may not know about from the electric cars, the particles that are coming off the ozone that's doing damage to the ozone layer that's coming off of those batteries is actually 3 times worse than the exhaust from the combustion engine vehicle now. They've done studies on that. So the hydrogen engine cleans the atmosphere for when you drive 1 hour. It cleans the atmosphere for at least the exhaust of your breath from one single human that you exhale for more than 30 days. That is bad. But the exhaust that comes out of our mouths, the plants breathe in. And what comes out of their exhaust is oxygen. Okay, so they don't want you to know about that either because they're about climate control and everything that's going on. And so they're going, but there is, obviously there's some carbon up there that are getting into all the smog. The smog will be cleared out of the atmosphere as time goes. So the more we transition into hydrogen vehicles, the more the atmosphere of this earth is going to change, which is going to stop global warming and stop the depletion of the ozone layer up in the sky, because we're going to reverse what all of our cars are doing as we transition away from the combustion engine. Electric the idea was that was what was going to happen, but they didn't realize it was going to cost everybody money to basically build new bridges or reinforce the bridges to be 3 times as strong as they are currently, and all the roads and all overpasses. So it was already a bad idea, and they were still trying to shove it down everybody's throat because they were making money off of it. So the car companies now have said, look, I don't care if the government is mandating it and they're telling us we have to do it. Here in this country, this is what they're doing. We're not making any money. We're not going to go out of business because they have an agenda. So they already are transitioning and telling all of their shareholders, because they don't want the shareholders to sell the product. Again, remember what I told you about understanding global economics and how supply and demand works. Their profit is from people buying their stock as much as it is from people buying their vehicles. So when people started going, look, if you guys are going to sell these cars, the electric cars, I'm going to sell your stock. And people started doing that. So the corporations were like, whoa, wait a minute. Now our stock is going to tank and people will stop buying it and we'll go out of business. We need to change something. So to save their own lives, because the people started speaking, first of all, we don't want your car. Secondly, I'm going to sell your stock. Look at what Bud Light, I don't know if you guys over there in the UK heard about that, but over here in America, Budweiser, which is not owned by an American company anymore. It's not owned by an Hive or a Bush. It's owned by a company now. I think it's out of Sweden. It was originally out of Brazil, but I think they sold to the Swedish company that owns Stella Artois and everybody else. So they literally, over here, somebody got the idea that we're going to now hire a trans man to be the spokesperson for Bud Light. Well, that went over like a ton of bricks here in the United States, and everybody stopped buying the product. Okay. Well, they all started buying Stella Artois, and I put out a thing showing, look, you need to know who the parent company of Anheuser-Busch is. It's the same parent company that owns Stella Artois. So the truth is they don't really care. You're not buying Budweiser, and you're still giving that company money by buying another one of their beers. You guys need to start buying from another company. And everyone said, well, if Budweiser goes out of business, think of all those people that drive the trucks and all those people who make all that beer. And I said, global economics. Those people are going to lose a job. But guess what? All the other beer companies are going to need more brewers and more drivers and more distributors, because everyone's going to be buying that product. So who do you think they're going to hire? Walt, the janitor who has no experience, or some guy who's been driving for Budweiser for 20 years? Those people are going to be fine. Make the statement. And apparently other people were saying the same thing, because the statement was made and Budweiser freaked the hell out. And then they all of a sudden fired the person who hired that person, and then started this whole campaign and tried to pay people money to sell their product to get the profits back up, because they were the number 1 seller of beer in the United States. Do you understand how that works? The same thing is happening. These car companies are saying, we're losing money because no one's buying our cars and they're returning them. The government is trying to force us to manufacture these, and states are trying to pass laws to ban our regular car. So we're going to leave. Same thing's happening here in the United States, over in California, the state I live in, because of all the homelessness, because of all the immigrants coming in, because of all the crime that's here. Companies are leaving this state. leaving the state. So the state's losing revenue, losing people, and losing all kinds of money. On top of that, because of the crime, they're closing in all of the states that are controlled by the same people, the Progressive Party in this country. All the cities that they run are drying up and all the manufacturers are leaving. Here in the state of California, they raised the minimum wage to $20 or $22 an hour for fast food workers. For some reason, they decided fast food workers weren't making enough money. Well, guess what happened? They laid off more than 40,000 fast food workers in the state, closed almost half of all the fast food restaurants, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Taco Bell, all of it, and left the state. And there's more of them that are leaving. Smaller companies are doing the same. The ones that are still there have now fired most of their staff, and they have robots doing it. They have a kiosk where you go in and order. You don't even talk to a human, and you got 3 people now manning the entire store. One guy to watch them all, one guy to cook the burgers, and one guy to take the orders. So literally now a staff of 15 has gone down to 3 so they can keep their stores open, which means they're firing all the employees because they have to pay $22 or $20 an hour to the ones that they're keeping. So it's now there's not going to be any jobs. So the same thing's happening when people are saying you should go to the self-checkout. Now you're fired the cashier and you fired the person who bagged the stuff for you. Those people had a job. Now they don't have a job. So now you're doing the cashier's work and the bagger's work. You're becoming a slave and you're doing it for free, and they're charging you more money. And they're making more money because now they don't have to pay all those people. They don't have to pay them overtime. They don't have to pay their medical. They don't have to pay any insurance on them, any liability, nothing. You're doing it all for them. And you're okay with that because I don't like standing in those lines over there. So I watched that happen. And then guess what? Everybody was standing in all the lines over there because now you don't have professionals going bleep, 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 and another guy going boop, 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 boop. Here you go. Have a nice day. And all you have to do is go swipe your card, boop, 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 and you're out of the store. Now people are going, how do I work this? Bloop, put it in the bag. Bloop, put it in the bag. Bloop, that didn't work. Bloop, that didn't work. Bloop, now it worked. Put it in the bag. And so now you're standing, your line is now 3 times longer, and your wait is 3 times longer because no one knows how to work these things. And even when you get good at it, no one knows how to work them. So do you understand how that worked? So guess what? All these companies that had closed all their lanes where they had humans in there down to about 3 and had 27 lanes for all the people to go in there and by themselves have now gone down to 3 and hired all people back again. Did you see how that happens? Because people stop shopping there. You have to see how you're making a difference and how you can make a difference. You have to be willing to bite that bullet. How about instead of going and buying all this stuff in these fast food places, you start learning how to cook the way it was when I was a kid, and you cook for yourself and you go and buy the product and then you cook for yourself. How about we start doing that? And that's what's happening in this country because nobody can afford going and paying all the prices for all the food, because not only are the people firing their staff and closing the stores, but they raised the prices of their food. So a burger that used to be $5 for a burger is now $20 for the same burger. Literally, in 3 years, has gone to $20 for the same burger that was $5 3 years ago. So no one's buying them. Why would I spend $20 on a burger? I stopped going when I was drinking when I was younger. I stopped going to a bar because if I wanted one beer, it would cost me $5. I could buy a 6-pack in the store for less than $5. Why would I pay $5 for one beer sitting in a bar talking to other drunks? Same thing. You go and get a shot or a jigger, and that was $10. For $10, I can buy a half gallon of the same drink, unless I'm buying whiskey. For vodka, I could buy a half gallon for the same price in a liquor store. Why would I buy one shot for the price of a half gallon to stand in a bar with the drunk people when I can go and buy it, come home and drink it and know that that cost me 25 cents instead of $10? That is how you take back control. Is you stop being lazy. I wrote a book about that, How to Get Out of Debt, Surviving the 21st Century. No one wants to read it. And anyone who does, they don't like my book because the first thing I tell them is stop being lazy. If you want to have I go to Starbucks, people go, I go to Starbucks and it costs me $15 for a cup of coffee. How about you stop going to Starbucks for 2 or 3 weeks and you save that money and you get over yourself and then you buy yourself an espresso machine, because in 3 weeks, you're going to have about $300 saved up, and you can buy your own espresso machine and read the how to work it, read the manual and find out how to work it. And when you do that, you're going to find out that $300 investment is now going to change and pay for itself in a month, because you're no longer paying $7 to $14 for that one coffee. You're only paying 25 cents now for that coffee, and you're manufacturing your own coffee. You're making it for yourself, your own espresso. And now it's perfect the way you like it, not some barista behind the counter, and you hope they get the combination right that you like of the shit you want in it. And then it sits on your counter at home, and guess what? It pays for itself. They sell you around the world on being lazy and having other people do it for you. And they tell you, well, the reason the economy works is that you go out and do those things. No, the economy will survive because it will adapt to you, to all of us, and what we're willing to pay for. Okay. So you have to start thinking about that. What are you talking about over here? Stephanie said, if you focus on not being alone, the universe will only absorb being alone. Right. Because you're saying being alone. Right. So as the focus, right, you have to realize, and there's a quote from Qui-Gon Jinn, I'll tell you about that in a second, right? Since it doesn't exist, the universe will provide being alone. Sorry, I'm reading about the language of energy, and it's about using proper language. Yes, because your focus determines your reality. So I teach this as well, Stephanie, when it's exactly that way. I didn't know that the people are writing about it and teaching it, but I'm sure that they're out there doing that. My father taught us this when we were kids. My brother finds this like you're doing, and then he'll go, our dad told us this stuff. He didn't even have a degree. If you say, like when someone says, I have cancer and I'm fighting cancer. Well, you're convincing yourself that you have cancer and you're not cured of it. You're fighting it. So your body expects that you should have cancer because that's what you're doing. You're fighting the cancer. So you can't say, I have cancer and I'm fighting it. You have to say, I refuse. I'm going to get over this. I'm done with this. I don't have cancer. I'm curing this. It's going away. You have to think that positive about things. Okay. I was back in 2013. I was having serious issues with my lungs. I used to smoke, and I smoked since I was like 9 or 10 years old. This is not a joke. So by this time I was 45, and I could barely breathe, and I had to go to the doctor, and they took x-rays and they stuck me in this machine, this acrylic machine where they had me breathing through this tube and plugging my nose and sucking the air out and pushing the air in and did all this stuff. And they said that I had COPD. Okay. And I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, you're going to be on inhalers for the rest of your life and this medication. And no one ever comes back from having COPD. So you need to quit smoking and you need to live with what you have. And I said, no, I refuse to say that I'm going to live with COPD for the rest of my life. Not going to happen. I'm going to cure this. It's going to go away, and I'm going to cure this. A year and a half later, I went back in to get reevaluated, and they said, this can't be right. We need to do x-rays and we need to test you again. Then they got a hold of the doctors that looked at me a year and a half earlier and got all the information and had all these doctors and scientists sitting down looking at everything. And they said, they looked at my lungs and all the x-rays and said, here are the same scars where he obviously had pneumonia when he was younger, yet his young lungs have regenerated and he no longer has COPD. No one would say I was cured because no one has ever done that. Okay. One doctor said to me when we were alone, he said, you realize that your lungs have regenerated. What is your secret? And I said, magic. My belief, I refused. I was healthy and I focused on having healthy lungs, breathing normal. And I did things to make my lungs feel normal. And I forced myself to breathe and forced myself to not give in and say, I have COPD. Didn't even tell anyone I had it. My wife knew it. I didn't tell my family I had it. I didn't tell anyone I had it, because the more people you tell, the more they focus on you with that. Okay. Oh, that was a coincidence. They said I was in remission. Okay. I also had asthma. That's gone too. I have an inhaler that sits on my nightstand that's been sitting there for 7 years and I haven't used it. They won't admit that my asthma's gone. They say I'm in remission. I tested positive for type 2 diabetes. Okay. Type 2 diabetes, and had me on medication. I decided that I wasn't going to be type 2 diabetic or any kind of diabetic, and I was going to fix that. What do I need to do to make sure that I don't have diabetes? What causes it? What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? And I'm going to fix it. I have tested negative with normal blood sugar for 2 years and 3.5 months because I quit drinking alcohol. So I didn't have the inflammation. I didn't have that extra sugar going into my system. And I pay attention to the ingredients in everything here in America. If you're in another country, it may not be as bad. But here in the United States, everything has 400 pounds of sugar in it. And they try to give you different names for the sugar to pretend that it's not sugar. And I literally read the ingredients of everything. And I cut all sugar out of my diet, except for what I need, because you do need some sugars. And I cook my own food. Rarely do I go and eat food from a fast food restaurant or a restaurant. I get the food and I try to get organic, everything. And I try to get it from local farmers so you don't have crap sprayed on it. You don't have wax sprayed on it to make it look pretty. And I cook my own food. And literally when I was in the hospital, because I was in the hospital, and they were giving me the diet of a diabetic, which was making my blood sugar go up to 190, which is almost comatose. And they were having to shoot me with insulin. And I'm like, what is the problem? I didn't have blood sugar this high before I came in here. And they're like, we don't know. It's just, sometimes people get stressed out when they're in the hospital. I said, I need to look at the menu. And so I literally got a nutritionist and the chef in my room. Well, the chef was on the phone, but a nutritionist in my room. I looked at their entire menu and I redesigned what I was going to be fed: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I cut out all of the sugars that they had hidden in the food that they were giving to their diabetics. I talked to the nurses. I said, is this normal? And they said, every diabetic who comes in here ends up having to get an insulin shot. I said, oh, so this corporation is purposely giving them sugar so that they can charge them for insulin, because I just changed my diet. And when I changed my diet, my blood sugar went down from 192 to 77, and they were worried that I didn't have enough sugar in my body. And I said, that's it. I'm going to make up, as long as I'm in this hospital, and I was there for 8 days, I designed what I ate for every meal and what I drank. And my blood sugar went down to normal. And when I came home, it stayed that way. And my doctor will only say that I'm in remission. Well, you're controlling it. I quit taking the medicine. And the doctor said, why aren't you buying the medicine? Do I need it? Has my blood sugar gone up now to where I need to have that medicine? No. I don't have type 2 diabetes. I don't have diabetes. Why? Because I refused to stay on their medication, which will perpetually keep you on that pill. Because pharmaceutical companies are not trying to cure anything. They need repeat customers. Okay? So you have to look at everything from the perspective of understanding or understanding that these people are not your friends and that they are going by what the Orion Crusaders, the Anunnaki, most of you know them, or the Bilderbergers, or the whatever you guys know that secret society as, they're literally doing this to you on purpose. And then they tell you these lies and you have to worry about that. And if you believe that, right? Stephanie says, I will not get any form of cancer, right? I will get, I will get any form of cancer. I will be free from all forms of cancer. Yeah. So you can't say I have cancer and I'm fighting it. You have to say, I don't have cancer. I'm free of cancer. I'm normal, and focus on yourself being healthy, not fighting, because your body will propagate that. Oh, well, and the universe will too. Oh, you're fighting cancer. So the universe will give you cancer to fight the rest of your life. You have to say, no, I refuse. I don't have it. I'm not going to have it. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to fix my body, right? So you have to look at that, and you have to change the foods that you eat. You have to literally, the sugar that is in everything is absolutely 187,000% the worst thing you can do for your body. Sugar is superfood for all cancers. It's superfood for inflammation. So is too much salt. Why is that? Look into this. Okay, don't trust me. Assume I'm lying to you and look it up. When you eat a lot of salt, your body wants to get it out, so it pulls in a bunch of water. The salt, the sodium, raises your blood pressure, which makes your heart pump harder, which makes your veins get thicker. And when you have blood sugar, when you have sugar in your blood thickens up, which raises your heart rate, raises your blood pressure, which causes problems, stroke, things like that in your system, causes inflammation in your system, which tends to make your entire system not work properly. You can't breathe right. You can't think right. Your blood is too thick. It's full of salt. It's full of sugar. And now your body is full of water, because that's how your body passes excess waste. It either puts it out through your butt or it comes out through your urine. All salt and sugar comes out through your urine. So your body has to store up on as much water, so you're thirsty all the time and you're drinking all kinds of water because you have too much sugar in your body and too much salt. You have to find the right balance. Then your body is inflamed. Now you're moving. It's harder for you to move because you have extra water and extra weight, which is going to cause your heart to beat harder and your blood pressure to go up even higher. See the downward spiral that happens? Cut out the excess salt. I don't say cut out all salt, because that'll kill you. It almost killed me, and it almost killed a buddy of mine because they told us no salt, and we went no salt. And then they were like, oh my God, you don't have any salt in your body. You're going to die. And we had to take salt pills. So don't cut all salt out. Change the salt that you eat. Table salt, regular sodium that you get on, table salt is death. Get away from that. Look into sea salts, Himalayan sea salts. Look into the medicinal purposes of salt. Most of the table salt is just blood pressure. And look at everything, right? Your bread, it'll say wheat bread or white bread. All white bread is 100% sugar. Everything you eat turns into glucose, turns into sugar. So if they add extra sugar to it, then it's death. So even when you get people like, well, I eat whole wheat, make sure it says 100% whole wheat. It doesn't say enriched wheat flour. Enriched means salt and sugar. So you have to learn the ingredients and pick things up and read the ingredients. Find out what's in it. Because if it has a lot of sodium, get rid of it. Just like soy sauce. People love soy sauce. You can get amino acids that taste exactly like soy sauce and have less than half of the sodium in it. It tastes exactly. In fact, it tastes saltier than soy sauce. And it's amino acids. I get them and I've been using them forever. Okay. And it's literally like Bragg, B-R-A-G-G, the company sells the amino acid. There's other companies, but if you like Chinese food and you put soy sauce on stuff, stop buying soy. Stop buying that. Get amino acids. Taste exactly. If I gave you a taste test, a blind taste test, they look exactly alike. They smell exactly alike. And when you taste them, you're going to go, oh, this has got to be the soy sauce because it's really salty. That's the amino acid. You can't tell the difference and wouldn't know the difference. Eat real stuff like peanut butter. I prove this to everybody. Organics and peanut butter. I prove it to everybody. I'll give them blind taste tests. Where's the peanut butter that you like? I like Jif. I like Peter Pan. I like Skippy. Let's set that down and let me get a peanut butter that is old fashioned, just peanuts and salt. Close your eyes and taste this and tell me which one you like. Everybody, no one says, oh, I like this bland one over here that tastes like air. No one. They're like, oh, that's peanut butter. That's the best stuff. Yeah, it's not. Now read the ingredients. This ingredients on this one that I'm feeding you right here says peanuts, salt, peanut oil. Yours is a paragraph, and it's got hydrogenated this and that, and MSG and all this other carrageenan and sugars and all of this stuff. What do you think that does to your body? This is peanuts ground up and added a little bit of salt to it. Okay, yours has more sodium than this one does, and it's got all kinds of sugars and all kinds of fat and all kinds of preservatives in it. But if you don't look, you don't know it. If you don't know it, you don't know what you're doing to your body. And the food is designed to hurt you, to make you fat, to raise your blood pressure. Because I remember when I was growing up and there was a study when people were talking about McDonald's and these other companies for fast food. The corporations were making their food salty, and they stopped doing it because people stopped buying it. So they stopped putting salt on their French fries, and you have to put your own salt on it. Because they were making all their food really salty. Why? Because fat people eat more food. So they didn't care if you were living and dying. All they cared was that you got addicted to their food and that you would come back to buy more. And when people were fat, instead of buying one burger, they buy 3 or 4. Okay. So that was their motivation. Their motivation was make them fat. Who cares if they eat it every day and they die in a year? There's going to be another one just like them. And we're going to make all the money. Okay. Philip Morris and the cigarette companies, literally, I'm sure you've heard these where you have the American guy who was the head of the company, and people asked him, do you smoke your cigarettes? And he said, no. He said, hell no. That's for what did he say? That's for the poor, the black, and the stupid. Literally, the guy who was in charge of the company wouldn't touch the cigarettes. And he said, only dumb, poor, black people will smoke this product. So they knew that it was causing people to die, but they didn't care because they were making money off of it. Okay. So you need to realize this stuff. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's killing you. The reason you're dying is because you're killing yourself with ignorance. And you have to realize that your whole life would be better if you're eating and growing your own food. They don't want you having a house because they don't want you planting a garden in your backyard. You guys over in the UK still call it a garden. Over here, we call it the backyard. They got everybody away from calling it a garden because garden says you grow food in it. Over in the UK, you guys still use older terms. We call it a flashlight. You guys still call it a torch from back when it used to be a torch. Okay. So the language of English in the UK and Australia is still more ancient. You guys still have a better chance of surviving this faster because America has gotten away from anything that is healthy, even calling the backyard the garden, because they don't want you thinking garden and grow food in the garden. Okay. They've trained the people over here to not even worry about that. And they're training people over here not to even fix their own food, to go and buy it from one of these fat food restaurants. Do you understand this? So the reason that you're in the fix that you're in my book that I wrote, that was called, How to Get Out of Debt, Surviving the 21st Century. I said, you were not poor. You're just America poor or England poor. You move out of that country and move to a third world country and you're rich there. And guess what? They eat organic food because they can't afford the pesticides and the crap to put in the food. So you have to go to the store every few days and buy organic stuff. And guess what? It's super healthy and everybody in those countries are thin. Not because, and everybody will tell you they're skinny because they don't have any money. That's not true. They're skinny because they're eating good food. You're fat because you're eating fat food that is making you fat. Okay. It's not because you have all kinds of money to buy food. It's because you're eating shit and you're going out to restaurants and they're giving you crap food and you're just complacent with it. The same thing with buying stuff from countries that are having slaves make it. You're complacent with that if you're buying in their products. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're complacent with it. So you should be looking into these things and realizing that and making a stand. They will change their mind when they lose enough profit. Okay. They don't want you to believe that. And they're like, nope, we're going to charge you that anyways. If someone said that and they're forcing you, this is what happened here in the United States. And if it hasn't happened in your country, it will. Over here, they were saying, that's it. All cars that are going to be sold in America are going to be, they passed a law here in the state of California saying no cars could be sold in the state of California unless they're electric cars by 2032. Well, guess what? The car companies are leaving. Okay. Then have at it. Get somebody who's going to sell those cars to you because we're not going to make any money. So we're leaving. Guess what? Everybody's making a choice to change. Why? At first, they figured that everybody's just going to comply and they're going to shut the hell up and they're going to buy the car. And then when people started going, no, then they started going, yes, we're passing laws. No, yes, no. And they just stopped. Everybody just said, I'm not buying them. And then guess what? When you push it into their pocketbook, the companies went, we're losing money. We have to make a choice now. We either follow what these 1%ers want us to do. Well, they don't own these companies, so they're not making any money, so they're not losing anything. We got to stay alive. So we're going to stop manufacturing this car. That's what happens when you, the people, decide something. Same thing with the government officials. Learn the word no. No. COVID. I never got a shot. I refused. I didn't wear a mask. I refused. I put on a mask every now and then. Like if I went to the hospital, you couldn't get in the hospital without having a mask on. They just won't let you in. Okay, put it on. pull it down below my nose, and everybody had to go, pull that up. Okay. They'd walk away. I'd pull it down. Put that up. Okay. They walk away. I pull it down. If you don't keep putting that up, I'm going to have you removed. By the time you do all that, I'll be done with what I'm doing here, and I'm going to leave anyway. So you go ahead. Go and get your security guards. And then I put it up when the security guards walk up. I don't know what he's talking about. I had it up the whole time. He keeps saying I didn't have it up. Go away. There's no law. Well, you're going to give us COVID. No, I'm not. You don't even know if I've gotten the shot, right? So if you've gotten the shot and according to what they say is true, then you can't get it from me anyway. So why are you scared? You're staying 6 feet away from me and you have a mask on, so you're supposed to be completely not going to get it, even if I have it right now. So why are you worried about what I'm doing? Because if you got the shot, they tell you you won't get it. Why are you worried that I haven't gotten it, or that I have it, or that I'm wearing a mask? You can't get it, remember? And then they couldn't answer that. Well, it's not 100%, right? But they're lying to you. They're telling you it's 100%, but I know it's not. So I refused. And when you use logic, they go, well, they're saying, okay, well, if they're saying you can't get it, then what is the problem? You can't get it. You got a shot, right? I could spit on you and you wouldn't get it. That's what they say. Go away from me. You have nothing to worry about. Or call the police and have them come and try to arrest me. Some of your countries, Australia and England, they were trying to do that. Till you guys said no. Right, Deborah, thank you. Right, you get the kudos. I'll have to send you. I have the picture that is the little award for not getting it. Deborah said I didn't get their COVID shot. It's poison, absolutely. Okay, and people were dying. I watched it happen. They lied about it. There's on Instagram and TikTok. There's a guy that shows you all these people that just dropped dead live on air. That dropped dead. I just posted it, I think, on my page. If I didn't, I'll find it tonight and I'll post it on my page. If you go to Facebook, you can see it there. Where literally it shows, I remember seeing some of those people live, like the very first nurse who got the COVID shot. She got the COVID shot and she was standing there talking and she dropped dead. Live on air, I watched it happen live. And then they said, no, she's fine. But the woman was never heard from again. Never came out on television to say, no, I just fainted. I'm fine. She died. Other people were doing the same thing. Sports people were doing the same thing. Playing sports. Football players dropping over dead on the courts. Tennis players dropping over dead. Hockey players dropping over dead. That happens like once, maybe every couple of years until COVID and the shots. Then it was happening all over the place around the world. Somebody put together a film that showed them all over the world doing that from different countries. And they still try to say that's a lie. Really? Because those things happen live on air. Those aren't deep fakes. Those happened and people saw it live where people were just dropping dead while they were talking. And it turned out all of them had the shot. And they were all in the ages between 18 and 27 or 30 where they weren't supposed to be just dropping dead like that. It doesn't happen very often, but it did during COVID. Do you see my point? Okay, I'm going to have to get off here. I didn't play any of Raw this week, but my mother is doing more scratch. Well, maybe I can go a little bit more. She's pulled her pants down. She keeps pulling her pant legs up and scratching, and then she puts it down when I look up at her. Not that she sees me, but she's just doing that, so I'm not sure why keeps scratching. But right now she's doing okay, so we can continue here. Okay, so you literally, right? So Cassie said, this is how I think you were trying to say I eat too. This is how I eat too. The less prepared, the better. Small meals, one or twice. And somebody said something in the screen, 1 or twice a day and very little meat. Well, it just depends. Each person, I don't eat a lot of meat either, but I am a carnivore. I like meat. So I do eat meat, but I don't eat as much as I did when I was in my 20s. But yeah, you have to, we're actually not designed they got us into this routine where you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you eat these, big meals. The human, you should look this up. The human is designed to eat like 7 small meals a day. We're not actually supposed to eat these gorging meals, but they want us to do that so we eat more food at the time, right? And then they want us to do that so that way we can work a long time before we have to take another break to eat. So it's designed so they can make money off of us. You eat breakfast before you start your job. Then you get a break where you can have a little snack if you need one. And then you have a lunch hour or 45 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever they're doing these days to all of us slaves. And then you don't get to eat until dinner. And so they have you convinced that you're only supposed to eat 3 times a day and you eat a lot of food because you're not going to be able to eat, slave, until an allotted time, because they don't want to give you 7 meals, time off to eat, 7 different breaks. They're trying to do away with all those breaks because they want production. But if you look up the true nature of the human being, we're supposed to eat 7 little teeny meals, snacking throughout the course of the day. It's better for you because you don't eat too much food, so your body becomes more efficient. Then you only eat the foods that you're craving, because your body will start craving. If you give yourself a bunch of sugar, your body's going to crave the sugar. If you give yourself the carbs, your body's going to crave carbs, okay? If you take away the sugar, your body is going to try and then use fat. That's why the keto or keto, however you say it, depends on what country you are, what part of what country you're in. That's how that works. So some people who are keto will eat all the protein and they eat no sugar. So the body will then go after the animal fat and the animal protein to convert that into fuel. And then you won't have all the sugars in your body, because it's really hard to have sugar in meat unless you buy it to where it's processed. So if you're buying a steak or a chicken or a fish or whatever, it's going to not have all these byproducts. That's why they don't want you eating meat, because they have a hard time getting sugars into it. They started putting steroids into it, salt again, in the meats to make you think that it's bad, so that it raises your blood sugar or your blood salt, and then your body brings in and stores water to try and get it out, which makes your heart pump and your blood pressure go up. And then they say, don't eat meat because it's bad for you. Well, don't eat their meat. Eat lean meat, and it's okay. And even eating animal fat if you're not consuming a ton of carbs and sugar. The other way around, if you're only eating vegetables, guess what? It's hard for them to have sugars and shit that's bad for you in the vegetables. So people who are vegetarians are going to be healthier. Why? Because they're not eating steroid-infested meat with all the salts in it. Do you see? Then there's no extra sugar that they can put in an apple. They're not putting a needle in the apple and piping in a bunch of sugar to make it sweet, although I'm sure they'll try. So again, it's healthy. So there's nothing wrong with either being a vegan, a vegetarian, or a keto. You have to stay away from all the excess carbs and processed foods. My buddy Paul, who died, but it wasn't because of this, he was the same way. He didn't eat any processed foods. He went from weighing 170 pounds, and he was only 5'9", down to 105 or 125 pounds, which was his right weight, because he stopped eating processed foods. Refused to eat any sugars and any processed foods. They said he was type 2 diabetic. Guess what? He was no longer type 2 diabetic as well. And they refused to say that you're just in remission. No, I stopped eating the dangerous food that you guys were recommending and feeding me. This crap. No one in the world wants American food, because it's designed to make you fat, stupid, overweight, diabetic, and have diseases. It's designed that way. So if you're okay with not eating meat and you eat just vegetables, that's fine. If you don't want to eat cheeses or any dairy products, that's fine. Stay away from the carbs anyways. Or if you just want to eat the meat and be a keto, that's fine. But you have to give up the ice creams, the cakes, the candies, the pies, the cookies, and all of the carbs. I have cookies that I eat now because I don't have any other inflammation, so I can have a cookie or two every night. But I also watch the ingredients that are in them. And if I don't agree with what's being sold in the store, I will make my own cookies with flour and some raw sugar instead of their refined crap, and eggs that are whole free-range chicken eggs instead of the ones that were steroid-infested. When you go to good products, you're going to get good products. Well, then it's going to cost me a little bit more. Well, they've kind of proven that doesn't matter these days when you're already in most countries now because of COVID, and the money they spending 20 to 40% higher prices than you were 4 years ago. So it's kind of moot point, don't you think? So you might as well go ahead and pay that extra 20 cents to be healthy on all the products. I would rather pay an extra $1 for a gallon of milk, but it's not. It's usually only about 50 cents, or an extra $1 for a flat of eggs, to all of a sudden cut down my cholesterol and my sugar and my fat content and all the salt that they put the steroids into that egg. You'll find the egg yolks are bigger. They're better eggs. The same thing with everything. Organic. Take an apple that's just your apple that you like and get an organic one and bite into one and bite into the other. Not at the same time because they'll mix together. But take a bite out of one apple, eat that, take a bite out of the organic. The organic one is going to be about a third smaller than this big steroid-infested apple. But guess what? It's going to actually taste like apple, and applesauce is going to be really fucking good. And the sugar that's in it is going to be better for you than the sugar that's in this one. And this is mostly water. Same thing with bananas. You're going to get this big Chiquita banana that's 18 inches long, and it tastes like air. And then if you get an organic banana, it's going to be about 6 inches long, and it's going to be way better tasting. and maybe it's going to cost you 15 or 20 cents for well, I'm only getting half of it. But the truth is, what you're getting from that banana that is all steroid infested and mostly water, in the nutritional level that you're getting from that banana is 1/3 of the one that you're getting from a half of a banana that's real. So you say to yourself, I have to spend more money. The truth is you're healthier, so you're spending less money to take care of yourself because you're taking care of yourself. So you're not sickly, you're not on medication, you're not on pills, you're not on inhalers, you're not dying of cancer, you don't have diabetes, you have no brain fog, and you have peace of mind. Guess what? You feel better, so you have more energy, so you're doing more. And then guess what? You don't care that you're paying an extra 20 cents for every product that you pick up, because you now have the energy to make more money, and you're healthier and you're leaner and you feel better about yourself and you're thinking straight. It pays for itself very quickly. That's why growing your own products is also going to pay for itself. Okay. Everyone in the world needs to get back to that. You need to get back to growing corn, growing everything. If you can have a little bit of property, you got to get away from living in apartments or somewhere where you can't grow vegetables and fruits. You got to start demanding that you want that. And don't let your people in your country tell you you can't grow food in your own backyard. They're trying to tell you you cannot have food unless you buy it from us. Do you realize that's what they're saying? You can't have chickens because they go bark, and somebody next door to you hates the sound of it, or a rooster. That's it. You can't have a rooster. Why? Because we don't want you making chickens. Oh, and you can't grow and you can't have chickens to sell eggs. You can't only have 5 chickens because we can't have you having extra eggs and giving them to your friends or trading them with your friends, because that means if you do that and everyone does that, you won't be buying from my store. I mean, you won't be buying from the supermarket. Do you see what they're doing? They literally are trying to limit what you can grow so they can grow it. They want to be in control of everything you do so that you don't have any money. You don't even need money. If you are literally self-sufficient, you don't need money. You can manufacture your own gasoline for your car. And they'll tell you, no, you can't. Yes, you can. You can make a biofuel. I was starting to do that when I was in Arizona. You can make a biofuel that your car will run on. In fact, the guys at Mythbusters proved, because some people were saying you could take a diesel engine and you can run it on Chinese food oil that they cook the Chinese food, or a restaurant that has deep fryers. You could just take that and put it in your car and it would run on it if you have a diesel engine. And they were like, that can't be true. So they took a diesel engine here in the state of California in Alameda, because that's where they were based. It was in Alameda, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. I used to work on the island near, because they were on the old military base, and I worked right next to where their office was, where their warehouse was. I never went out there, though, but I watched the television show, and I'm like 2 blocks from them where I work. So they literally went out there on the military base on Alameda, or actually I think they went on to Angel Island. It doesn't matter. It's right there in the water, like 3 miles from where Alameda is. Angel Island is literally the island that the Bay Bridge goes. As you're leaving Oakland and you're going to San Francisco, you go across the bridge to an island. That's that island. And then you go across that into San Francisco. So there's a military base there. And that's where the pirates used to have a base. And a lot of people said they buried treasure there. Anyway, Treasure Island, not Angel Island, Treasure Island. That's why it's called Treasure Island. So anyway, so they were on the military base, and they literally hooked up a tube, and they literally took a 2-liter bottle and stuck it in there and cut the top off of it and poured oil from a Chinese food place in it and started the car and just drove it to see how many miles to that 1 gallon that they would get, or 1 liter that they would get if they could just drive it on that oil. And the car smelled like Chinese food if you were driving behind it, because it smelled like you had cooking Chinese food. And it actually got almost exactly the same gas mileage as putting diesel fuel in it. Okay. And you can manufacture that from regular cooking oil. And I had that in my book, which is that I still don't, no one wanted to buy, which was prepping/survival for beginners. I had that in my book to tell you how to manufacture that. And I'm not going to talk about it now, but it only took like 3 ingredients: cooking oil that you can pick up at a store, and now they lock it up because people like me were going over and getting it for free from these fast food restaurants or Chinese food restaurants. They're like, yeah, we got to pay to have it hauled off. Here's 5 gallons. We would go home and pour it in a vat and put a couple of chemicals in it and literally churn it and then siphon it. And what you're doing is the same thing they do with crude oil. And you literally siphon off and it literally changes the composition of the oil and turns it into a biofuel. And the waste is soap, liquid soap. So then you take that liquid soap, and if you want to make bars of soap, you add a little bit of glycerin to it or a little bit of gel, and it turns into bars of soap. So literally, I was making my own soap to wash our clothes in and our dishes by making fuel to drive in a car out of cooking oil or even spent cooking oil that you already cooked something in. Literally pour it in and keep the oil that's left over from cooking bacon, the bacon grease. You can run a car on it. And it doesn't take much to change that. They don't want you knowing about that because they want you buying from them. They don't want you manufacturing it. Sure, does it cost a little money up front? Everything does for you to do it yourself. And then once you do it and you start using it, then it pays for itself really quickly. Just like when I was talking about save the money from buying a coffee at a place, Starbucks or wherever around the world, whatever your coffee place is, instead of buying that for $7 to $10 or pounds, save that money for 1 month, buy the machine that you sold in all the stores to make that yourself at home. You're going to find that the cost is now going to pay for itself in less than another month, maybe 2. And then you're going to be getting a big coffee that you were paying $7 for 25 cents. And you could put those stuff in there and make it perfect the way you like it. Every single time. You don't have to sit in line waiting with your car running, burning fuel, sitting in a drive-through or finding a parking spot and getting out and standing in line and waiting for some kid to make it for you and hope they make it right. And then you have to figure out and you got to leave, get up extra early so you can get there and get it before you go to work, and then stop at a fast food restaurant to get your breakfast. Take care of all that stuff yourself. You're going to find that you're healthier. You have more time in the day. And I don't have enough time in the day to do that. That's because right now you're spending all that time sitting in line. You won't be spending all those minutes sitting in line, and you won't be spending all that money. I do the math in the book and explain to you that how much money you're burning in gas and fuel and oil and time sitting in those drive-thrus to pay that extra exorbitant price compared to what you're getting paid when you go to a job, and how much you're in the hole by the time you go home, half of your pay. Almost half of your pay by the time you get home. And then if you don't cook your own food and you buy stuff to eat at home and you don't cook your own food, again, more than half of your pay is already gone every day driving, sitting in lines, standing in lines, buying food prices for other people that manufacture it for you. So you're literally, if you're making $5 an hour, $10 an hour, $20 an hour, you're only making half of that because half of it is going to get you there and buy all your products before you get home because you don't want to make it yourself. I don't have time to do that. Add up how much time it takes you to drive and sit in that line, and then drive from there to the other line to get food. And then on your lunch, you drive and go to another line. You could have made food and brought it with you and stuck it in a refrigerator at work and pulled it out and sat down and ate it and had the whole 45 minutes to an hour to sit around and watch TV, read a book, do a language online, do whatever you want to do, instead of having to jump in your run out, get in your car, drive, wait in line, and buy food that is terrible for you, and then eat it while you drive back because you're running out of time before you get back. Priorities in your life. You're going to find that your stress level is different because you're not sitting in line, you're not driving in traffic, people honking, cutting you off, screaming at you, sirens, cars, gunshots, people screaming, walking across the street, flipping you off, throwing shit on your car. None of that happens. Your stress level goes down, your blood pressure goes down, you have more energy, you feel better about yourself, and you're not worried about all this excess stuff. You don't know that you're doing it because you're used to doing it. When you take a break from that, it changes your life. When you start eating better, it changes your life. You then realize that you have 2 or 3 extra hours a day you don't know what to do with. Then you're cooking food and preparing it ahead of time because now you have the extra time. I do that now. The reason that I don't have to worry about getting up here and cook is because I cooked something 2 days ago and put it in the refrigerator. We had it 2 days ago and I cooked something different yesterday. And today I heat up leftovers so I can go however long I need to go while I'm talking to you guys. And I already have food prepared. I just go and heat it up. And then my mother and I have dinner. You prepare things the way your grandparents used to prepare them. And everything that you cook, when you have leftovers, you take those leftovers and use those in different ways. If you cook chicken one day and you have leftover chicken, you don't want to eat the exact same chicken the next day. You can eat something different. And on the third day, you can take that chicken and cook it in a different way and add it to something else. So you're not eating the same chicken you had before. Now you put it in a soup or something. You're going to find that when you do that, you're going to spend less money. I got to jump in the car, go fight traffic, sit in that line, buy fast food, drive home, eat the crap food, gain more weight, have all kinds of sugar, all kinds of fat. My blood pressure goes up. My body is stressed out. Or you take care of yourself and you eat lean and you have plenty of time in the day to do other things that you like. You're going to find that you're a nicer person because you don't have all this stress in your life. And you're not going, you know what happened to me when I got out there? This guy cut me off. And then this woman came out of nowhere and started honking and yelling at me like it was my fault. None of that even happened because you're standing in your own kitchen cooking your food. Guess what happened? I don't know what happened. I dropped this damn spoon on the floor and I had to pick it up and get a new spoon. And now I got to clean the floor. Oh no, do you have to mop the whole floor? No. I just had to get a rag and clean it up and it was okay. And then dry it with a towel and everything's fine. So that's the worst thing that happened to you. Yesterday, you went to go and get a pizza and you had a car cut you off and a lady honked at you and this other guy threw something, spit at you on the car because you didn't see him when he was stepping out in front of the car. And then there was an ambulance that almost cut you off and this other guy flipped you off and you don't even know why he did that. And somebody stole your parking spot. And then the guy gave you the wrong shit in the drive-thru and your whole life was stressed out. Worst thing you had today was you dropped the spoon on the floor and had to clean it up while you were cooking this great meal for yourself and your family, and it was very healthy. You don't realize your mindset, getting back to what we were talking about before, you don't realize that your mindset is, I'm fighting the world, and I have to get my armor on to go out there into that world because they're going to rip you off. They fuck you in the drive-thru. They're going to steal from you. They're not going to give you what you're supposed to have. They're charging me too much money, and then I have all these other crazy catastrophes happen while I'm driving there and back. And I'm in a hurry and I come home, Jesus Christ, everybody shut up and sit down and eat because now I'm stressed out. And by the way, we're eating food that is super high in salt, super high in sugar and fat, and all this stuff is bad for us. Or you bite the bullet and you make changes in your life and you change the way you think. Your focus determines your reality. The way you think about things, words that you use. There's a reason it's called spelling, because you're casting a spell. Look up why is it called spelling? What does the word spell have to do with writing? It doesn't. A spell, look up the word spell and find out what that is. It's an incantation. It's your intention put into something, put into words, and you're writing it down. So you have to realize that that's what you're doing in your head when you think negative thoughts about yourself. Bruce Lee said that. Bruce Lee was famous for a quote that he said, I never say anything negative about myself or even think it, because your focus, your thoughts, now I'm paraphrasing Qui-Gon Jinn, your focus determines your reality. So if you can't say bad things about yourself, other people say things that are bad. I told you the story, my ex-wife, her father, his name was Jim, and there was like 4 Jims that were friends of my father's. So we had different names for each Jim. We come up with nicknames for every Jim. One we called Jimmy. The other one we called Daddy Whopper because we were Citizen Band radio users and everybody had their handle. And he liked Whoppers, so he called himself Daddy Whopper. So we called him Daddy Whopper or Wop Wop instead of Jim. But JL, because his name was James Lewis, JL, everybody, we didn't call him Jim. We called him God Damn It Jim. Because God Damn It Jim started every sentence ever when he talked to somebody with God damn it, and then he said their name. And he always did that, no matter what they did. He was never happy, and he yelled at his kids and his wife and everybody. God damn it, Cheryl. God damn it, Melissa. God damn it, Kevin. Every time he talked to them. So he didn't know it, but we called him God Damn It Jim. Come forward in time, like 25 years after I met them, I'm married to his daughter, and she spills something in the kitchen, and I hear her. I'm sitting at the dining room table, and I'm on my computer, and she's in the kitchen I don't remember what she was doing, dishes or something. And she spilled something, and all of a sudden she goes, God damn it, Melissa. And I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? That is so programmed into you that you're immediately doing that. And because, see, my father wasn't that way. If you spilt milk on the table during dinner or your water, he didn't yell at you for doing it. He'd go, oh, whoops, look out. And he would grab a towel. Let's get a towel, wipe that down. You're okay. Don't worry about it. Clean it up. Let's clean it up. All right. Okay. No problem. You're fine. Let's get you some more milk. Sit down. It was an accident. It was a mistake. You're okay. Don't worry about it. That was how my father was. He didn't go, God damn it, Leonard. Okay. He never did that. You don't know that that's good for you until you see other people having the opposite. And then you go, wow, I was lucky. When I was growing up, I was like, other kids would be like, and my parents do this and yell and say that. And I'm like, wow, look at my brother. That doesn't happen to us. Right. Okay. Why is that? So you have to start looking at, we're lucky. I was lucky in the family that I had, that I wasn't getting beat up and yelled at and told that I was useless and worthless. And unfortunately, that happens to a lot of people. Then you propagate that forward. You don't break the cycle unless you're aware of it and you decide to break the cycle. The same thing goes with your programming from society, right? You have to realize that simple things that are being done to you that you're doing to yourself, and stop yourself from doing it. Stop yourself from consuming products that are doing damage to you. And how do you know which ones are? You have to look at them and read the ingredients to all the products that you're putting on your body, in your body. You have to be diligent. Take that moment to do that. When you pick something up at the store, and I find this that now that's happening more and more often. I go to the store and I'm looking at something and I'm reading it, and I look around and somebody walks up over here and picks something up and they start reading it. And I look at them and go, yeah, I know, right? What is it, the sugar or the salt that you don't like? And they're like, oh, both. I can't believe the stuff they have in here. Yeah, right. But 10 years ago, it wasn't like that. I would go, when I first got here back to California, I went down near this local store and I walked in and I'm going to get fruits and vegetables. And I walked up and their organic area was about 20 feet. And I'm like, whoa, there's no organics here. And I would refuse to buy any of the other stuff. And then I would mention it to the people in the store. You guys need more organics in here. I'm not buying stuff here. I'm going to go to another store. And over time, in less than a year, that doubled. So that meant there was other people doing the same thing. Somebody was getting the idea that more people want more organics. And now the organic aisle is almost half of all of that now. And you find that people are over there more than they are over there. So they keep expanding it. They keep going more organic. But it takes people to stop buying it. And then when people say, why aren't these people buying these products? Then they do surveys because you guys have nothing but crap in them. I'm not going to buy your junk. They will change their mind because they're losing money. They'll lose their job. So all you have to do is make the change yourself. You can't change the world, but you can change you, which will change the world. Okay. So getting all the way back to what I was talking about in the beginning about politics and what's going on in the world and economics and what's going on in the world. You don't have to worry about changing the politicians. What you need to do is change yourself and your habits and change everybody and get everybody else to change themselves. Okay, so if we all start changing ourselves, that's going to force them to change, because when you start making the changes to yourself, that's going to affect their bottom dollar and they will cater to you. First, they'll try to force you to go to their will. And if you keep refusing, they will cater to you. COVID was a good example of that. When people said no, COVID ended. And now the Center for Disease Control, whatever they call that in your country, is calling COVID a flu, which is what most of us who didn't have anything to do with the shot were telling you from the beginning, that it was only a flu bug and it was never dangerous. Oh, no, it's changed. Yeah, because they do change. So even if it was dangerous when we first got it, it doesn't want to die either. So it's going to make itself less dangerous so that it can survive, because it's sentient, whether you know it or not. It doesn't want to die. So it can't kill the host because then it dies. So it has to make itself less lethal so the host survives it so it can be transmitted to another person. That's the way it works. You should look that up. That's the way everything works. So people who are greedy and don't want to sell you a car because it's $70,000, if nobody buys their car, that same car is going to become $50,000. First, it'll go $60,000. And if no one buys that, it'll go down to $65,000, $64,000. No one buys that, they'll drop it to $60,000. No one buys that, they'll drop it to $58,000. If you hold out long enough, you'll get it at a reasonable price. You just got to start doing that and refuse. When they lose money, you'll see them close. Well, if all the restaurants close, I won't eat. No, yeah, you will. You'll have to learn how to cook. You should be doing that anyways. You'd be healthier for doing it. Same thing. You want a car that's cheap? Stop buying them and selling your soul to get one. at those high prices, and they'll lower the price because they don't want to lose money. They don't want to lose their job. They answer to the people who are in charge, and those are the shareholders. The shareholders want to make money. The rich 1% wants to make money. They don't care how. Okay. So if you force them to get to lower their prices, they'll take it. They'll first try to pass laws to shut you up and force you to go down that until you get tired of it and say, no, we're not doing that. And then they'll go, yes, you are. And then you go, really? No. And then when the people say, well, then maybe we should just overthrow you. Hold on. No, don't get crazy. We'll make changes. Look what's going on right now here in the United States. Joe Biden is pivoting because he needs to get reelected, and they're desperate to keep their power. Joe Biden is becoming Donald Trump. Joe Biden is going to enact everything, he's already starting to do it, that Donald Trump had enacted when he was the president, that he got rid of the second he got into office. They have 90 days, 103 or 104 days, whatever it is left before the election. You're going to see the Democrats run as hard as they can away from that far left-leaning ideology to get reelected and promise all those people we'll be right back here once we get reelected. But right now, we need to stay in power. So if you watch the debate, you saw Joe Biden, who was pandering to the Hamas believers in this country because he wanted the votes and needed them until he is made the front-running person. Now that he pretty much knows I'm going to be it on the Democratic side, he's running away from them. In the debate last night, he was like, Hamas needs to be stopped and destroyed completely. You would have never heard him say that in the last 3 months. He was doing everything he could do to pander to them when they were taking over the colleges and occupying colleges all across America. He was pandering to them because the vote was coming in. And as the vote came in, and it kept coming in for him more and more and more and more, and he realized he didn't need their vote anymore, he pivoted away from them and ran away from them as fast as he could. Didn't give a shit about them anymore. And that proved it last night in the debate when he was like, Hamas needs to be destroyed, taken out, and obliterated. 2 months ago, he was like, there needs to be a ceasefire, and the Hebrews over there need to stop they're killing people, and they need to stop all that, and we're not giving them any weapons. And then last night when he was asked about it, it's like, well, no, we were just stopping them from getting these weapons that didn't work good anyway, and they might have harmed some civilians. But Hamas needs to be stopped, and they need to be killed and destroyed. Pivoted, went completely 180 degrees, repented, and went back the other direction because he no longer needs to pander to those people because he doesn't need them anymore. Now that he doesn't need them, because he's pretty much the front runner, because it's already been almost 20 of the 50 states or over 25 of the 50 states, past halfway, he can survive on what he has and he'll get the nomination. Doesn't need him. Now he's saying Israel has every right, and we're going to back them 100%, and Hamas needs to be destroyed. 4 days ago, he was still pivoting, but the votes came in from some more of the states that made him the front runner, and he no longer needs them. Ran away from them and sold them out. That should tell you something when these people do it. Okay, Donald Trump did the same thing when they were killing people the Saudis were killing people, murdering people, and everybody was calling for us to boycott against Saudi. Donald Trump pivoted away from that idea as fast as he could. Why? Because he wanted the relations with the Saudis because they were paying us $200 billion to buy our military weapons and tanks. We were making money off of them. So he pivoted away from the idea. And then once he made the deal, he cut them out because he didn't need them anymore. Pivoted back to we need to get away from the Saudis. But he waited until the money came in first. Didn't need them anymore. Pivoted away from them for the rest of his regime. But when it first happened and everybody called for us to do it, he was like, hold on now. We have relations with them, and we stand to make a lot of money off of them. The second they cut that check and it passed, he cut them out because he didn't need them anymore. Politicians do that all the time. When they need you and they need your vote, you're their best friend, and they'll pander to you and tell you and promise you everything. The second they no longer need you, they're going back to their legitimate ideology of stealing all your money and making you pay for it. Okay? They do it on all sides. You need to realize that's a religion, and it's the religion of evil. Okay? Right. Deborah said Joe Biden's health is not allowing him to run for anything except the bathroom, but I still pray for him. He's a human being. I feel bad for him. My mother has dementia and she barely speaks anymore. And I have to bathe her and she's wearing diapers. She's 80. He's 84 or whatever he is, 82, 84, however old he is. I see the signs. I've been my mother's caregiver and legal guardian for 7 years now. It'll be 8 years in October. And I see the signs in Joe Biden and what he's going through. And I'll tell you, he's not going to get any better. He's going to get worse. And they're propping him up, and they've been doing it for a lot longer than they should have. So it's terrible. I feel bad for him because I don't think he remembers now. If he does, he doesn't remember much, and they're keeping most of it away from him. I mean, it's just after the debate. I don't know if you guys continued watching. I have it recorded. I don't know if you guys continued, if you watched the debate. But his wife came and had to hold his hand and lead him off the stage. And she had to hold on to him so he could step down 2 steps to the bottom floor without falling down. I have to do that with my mother. I have to hold her hand and walk her and sometimes put my arm around her so she doesn't trip and fall. She didn't have her arm around him, but she was holding on to him, and she literally had to slow down and help him go down 1 step, down 1 step. I didn't see it live. And they played it this morning on the news, and I'm like, is that live? Did that happen afterwards? And I went back and watched it, and I was like, okay, because I recorded this. So they can't say it was a deep fake, right? Because they tried to say that. But he couldn't walk down the 2 steps by himself. That should tell you something. And then she was talking to him, and they were showing it this morning, and she was talking to him because he was live, and they were watching it, and she was saying, she looked at him and went, and you answered every question, right. And I was like, and they even said, man, that's what you say to a little kid. You did so good up there. You answered all that man's questions. And that was the way she was talking to him. And I'm like, I did that to my mom. I'm like, whoo-hoo. I put her on her shoes. If she does it by herself, I look at her and I go, look at that. You got that. You did that on your own. I pretty much have to put her socks and shoes on her now. I have to dress her. I have to undress her. She assists. But now if I hand her pants, here, put these on, she'll sit down, and sometimes she can get a foot in. Otherwise, she tries, and then she looks at me, and I go, do you want me to help? And then I help her. But I try to make her do it on her own first with everything. But it's just getting to the point where she can't. Okay, so I feel bad that that's happening to him. Same thing happened to Ronald Reagan. If you guys go back in time to the 80s, Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's or dementia, and they hid it from people. The Republicans hid it from people for a long time. And it wasn't until they got caught from the Iran-Contra scandal that he had made some gaffes where he was telling the world what he did. I saw it. He was telling the people that he went around Congress, and they were like, no. And then they were like, he doesn't know what he's saying, and they had to come out with it. It wasn't until after his presidency ended when they fully said, yeah, he's got Alzheimer's and he's pretty far gone. They had hid it just like they did with Joe Biden. It was obvious. With Ronald Reagan, it wasn't as obvious. He wasn't as far advanced. And I remember, watching that, but they did hide it, that he was having the same signs. And then afterwards, they admitted that he was far worse than anyone knew, and they hid it for the last about year. Well, Joe Biden probably shouldn't have been the president after a couple years. Definitely should have, when he got his first term done, should never have come back. And now he's trying to, halfway through his first term, he really shouldn't have come back to run for president. But he did. And halfway through, it's been bad. And it's going to get worse. He only has, about 130 days left until it's 103 or something to the election. And then he has until January. So he's got like 6 months left. We'll be lucky if he makes that. And if he wins the election, you're going to have Kamala Harris as our president, because he's not going to make it. I don't even think he'll make it to the inauguration. If he does, right after he becomes president, they swear him in. You're going to see days, weeks, not even months, and they're going to take him out of office. They're going to say he's unfit. Right now, they don't want to do it. They're afraid. They don't want Kamala Harris running. They're scared to death. She's worse off. She's horrible. She's cognizant. What's the word I'm trying to say? She is completely in there and dumber than him. She is a moron. I don't know what her IQ is, but she has no speaking ability. You thought George W. Bush was bad as an orator. She's horrible as a orator, horrible as a person. I would rather have Hillary Clinton as the president, and that woman's evil. I would rather have anybody as the president than Kamala Harris. So if you guys elect Joe Biden, it's going to be Kamala Harris in weeks. He'll miraculously die. They'll do the 25th Amendment on him. They'll find him unfit. And then they got to, whoever is his running mate, if it's going to be her again, they have to make sure that they have total control over her. And that's probably the way it is now. So they don't care. So the people that are in power want to stay in power, and it's wag the dog. They're propping him up. It's the Manchurian candidate. He's not really in charge now. I think his wife is the one that's pulling all the strings, but I think it's the cabinet that's running the government, always has been. They don't know what's going on. At first, I thought it was Kamala Harris, but she's not smart enough. She would have maneuvered herself into a better position if it was her, and she hasn't. She's been kind of pushed aside. So I know that she's not the one that's actually in charge. It's got to be Barack Obama still that's in charge. And he just stepped in today and said that Joe has to continue running. So I think it's because they did the math and they found out that in this country, we don't have a vote of no confidence like you guys in the UK do. Our no confidence is the 25th Amendment, and you have to prove that he's unfit. But then the vice president becomes the president, and nobody wants Kamala Harris. So they either have to primary him. Their primary, the convention is in August. So in 2 months or a month and a half, almost a month, because the first is what, next Monday. So that's July. So August 15th is the convention. I think it's August 15th is the convention for the Democrats. They either have to have him step down then and say he's just going to finish out his term, but he's not going to accept the nomination, or they're stuck. Because some of the states here in this country, everybody see to run in this country. I don't know how it works in your country, but in this country we have 50 states. Every state is an independent sovereign nation that joined this union. So they have their own laws when it comes to elections, and you have to abide by the laws for every state to get on the ballot. So you have to have a certain, whatever their laws say, to get your name put on the ballot to run for the president. And then the delegates have to vote for you, and the delegates from that state go to you. Okay. And then you have a total number of delegates from combined all of the states, and there's a total number that you have to make the presidency. So here you could win the popular vote. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote but lost the election, because our country is set up so that the popular vote doesn't determine the election. Because if that were the case, you would only need Florida, Texas, California, and Pennsylvania, and New York to vote out of the 50 states. The total population of those states outnumbered the total population of all the rest of the United States combined. So, I mean, there's 40 million people in the state of California alone. There's 38 million people in the entire country of Canada. So the state of California has more people than the entire country of Canada. The people of the state of California has more people in it than most countries in Europe do. Just this one state. Okay. So the popular vote would elect a Democrat because they outnumber the Republicans, and the popular vote is the populace. So that's literally Texas, California, Pennsylvania, and New York, and Florida. That's where all of the population of the United States resides. All the rest of the state of Arizona in the summertime, when the snowbirds come in and when the people fly south for the winter, is 15 million. It's the entire state of Arizona. In the wintertime, that goes down to 8 million people. That's it. There's more people in the San Francisco Bay Area than there is in the entire state of Arizona. Do you see? So the popular vote can't count because the state of California has 40 million. Do you see? So our founding fathers set it up to where each state, depending on how many population, how many people they have, get a certain number of delegates, which is still overwhelming because the state of California has like 40 delegates and the state of Arizona has 2. So it's still kind of overwhelming in that respect, and it has to be looked at, because what they're doing is they're going by per capita. That's why you have all the progressives wanting all these illegal aliens in, because they're trying to change the demographic. At first, they were trying to change Republican states to to Democrat states by bringing these people in and having them convinced to vote for, we'll give you everything, but you got to vote Democrat, and pushing them into Republican states. The Republicans got wind of that and started moving them to the Democrat states, which was the smartest thing they did. I said they should have done that from the beginning. Start trucking them into all these states who say we're sanctuary cities. Put them all there. Get them out of your state and put them over there. Once you take it to them, they're going to find that it's a problem. And then they all started doing it. Not because I said it, because other people like me said it. And they started moving all of the people to New York and Washington, D.C. and California, and overwhelmed their system. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, these people down there in the southern border, all those Republicans are shipping all these people up here to us. How dare they? You're allowing them to come across the border because you say you want them in here, but you don't want them in your state. So we're going to give them to you. So you see what we're going through. And all of a sudden they all started saying, wait a minute, we don't want to have these people in our country. There you go. Now you're catching on. But now what they're trying to do is make them all citizens, because then if they can count them in the census, they get more delegates. So they're trying to get around the popular vote by influencing with more population, so they get more delegates, so they can overwhelm the other states that have less delegates. But right now, the way it works is you have to have this delegate system. So if say, 200 million people vote for Donald Trump, but 250 million people vote for Joe Biden, Donald Trump might still win the election, because if he wins all the delegates from all the states more than Joe Biden does, he wins. And that's what they tried to abolish when Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She tried to abolish the electoral college and go to the popular vote, because they know if that's the case, there's more Democrats than there are Republicans, and they'll get voted into office every time. That's why our founding fathers set it up to where it's not the popular vote, because then you just buy votes. You just manufacture votes somehow and convince people to vote for you, and the popular vote wins, and you stay in power forever. So that our founding fathers set it up to, our government set up to where it can't do that. So now they're trying to get around that by flooding a population of people that are going to replace and overwhelm and allow them to count them and then give them a vote. And then they'll be legal citizens. And now all of a sudden they have more constituents, which give them more delegates. And that's what they're trying to do now, because they couldn't get the popular vote as the way to elect. So again, you have to see what they're doing and realize what they're doing and why they're doing it to understand what's happening. In your country, they're doing the same thing. You just say whatever your version is of your electoral system, they're gaming that system and overloading it with people from foreign countries and trying to make them citizens so they can change your way of life as well. And I don't know how everything works in other countries because I'm not there. But and you should look into it, because you're going to find that that's what they're doing. They're doing the same thing to you that they're doing here. They're just doing it in whatever way works there to get within the laws and change your laws so that they can change the demographic and keep themselves in power. So you need to look at that wherever you are. It's the same thing. It's the same modus operandi of evil people, of these people, the Anunnaki, whatever you want to call them, right? So I see now you guys have your own conversation talking about MK Ultra and all that, right? They're survivors from the government programs such as MK Ultra and other horrible things. So you're talking about people that are whistleblowers that are coming out and talking, right? Deborah said, I'm backing up now, reading what you guys said. Deborah said, you can always change the outcome. What happens to our planet, one consciousness of the whole humanity can change our instead of we can divide as we should be a whole. Well, yeah. So you have to change the mindset of people's thinking. So, but you can only change yourself, right? Socrates, was it Socrates? Yeah, Socrates said 5,000 years ago or so. He said, "I can't convince you of anything. I can't make you believe anything. The only thing I can hope to do is to get you to start thinking for yourself." Very wise words, because it's true. The only person that I can convince is myself. The only person that I can change is myself. The only way that you can change yourself, and the only way I can get you to change in any way, is to try and cause you to think for yourself. And that's why I always say, don't believe a word I've said. Believe I'm lying to you. Believe I'm wrong. Believe I'm making this up. And go down that rabbit hole and investigate and ask questions. Because Alice Cooper, the rock star. When I was a kid, I was probably 16, 17 years old. And I liked Alice Cooper. I liked heavy metal and rock and roll and speed metal. I love death metal, speed metal now. I love all music. Honestly, I do. Depends on my mood. And I was watching an interview because Alice Cooper, and he wore paint on his face. He looked like the Joker, only he didn't have the red lips. He had black painted, and he had white and long hair, and he had black paint here, like crosses on his eyes and black around. And he was just rock and roller. And he was giving this interview, and he looked right at the camera, and he said, and I want all of you out there to listen to me and pay attention now, because I'm being very serious. Question everything. Question everything. Don't believe people when they tell you something, and don't believe the system. Don't believe the governments. Don't believe the so-called authorities. Question everything. And I remember when he said that, I was like, wow, that's very profound coming from someone who's supposed to be this rock and roll guy, who's a crazy, drug guy and a rocker. And that's the image that everybody thinks of him. The same thing with Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent was this long-haired hippie, pot-smoking rock and roll star. He was famous for the song "Wang Putang," "Wang Dang Sweet Putang," and which I don't know if you guys know what that means in your language. Over here in America, that means pussy. That means female genitalia. And so he had the song that was getting around the narrative of the editors, and he was singing about having oral sex with women. And literally this was the persona of who he was. And the guy is now the head of the National Rifle Association, CEO of the company. And he's one of the most outspoken people against, the atrocities of the deep state. You look at Jesse Ventura, who, I don't know if you know who he is. He was known in America for being Jesse the Body Ventura, a professional World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment wrestler, fake wrestling. This guy his job was to be basically an acrobat and did this performative art as a wrestler on television. But the man was an ex-Navy SEAL, and he went on to become the two-time governor of the state of Wisconsin. Here in the United States, or the state, I think it was Wisconsin. Don't quote me on the state, Michigan or Wisconsin. And I think it was, Minnesota. Two-time governor of Minnesota. He's very intelligent. And he then had a television show where he was going after these deep state Bilderbergers and Skull and Bones and Anunnaki, whoever you want, Illuminati. They threatened his life and said that they were going to kill him, and he had to go into exile and down in South America. He had to go on the run out of the United States and cancel his show. But he's still lobbying, and I'm still on his email list. I still get his information sent to me every 3 days or so. I get a video from him that he's still doing that. He just was in front of Congress, talking in front of Congress about this stuff. So here's these people who were unlikely subjects, who were just these people who were nobodies, no-brainers, rock stars and entertainers that were very, very far more intelligent than people gave them credit for. And they then took a stand in a way that got them looked at by these deep state people who had to come after them to try and shut them up. And they still found a way to weather that storm and champion people around the world. Look at I can't remember his name now, but he was over there in one of those countries in Europe, in Eastern Europe, I think. And he was in home arrest over there. He was an MMA fighter here in the United States. I can't think of his name. He and his brother, and he was outspoken and going against the cabal and going against the mainstream and all these people. And they arrested him and held him in prison for a while. And you literally had Conor McGregor, who went through that when he started making so much money. They were trying to force him to do what they wanted him to do, and he refused. And they went after him and said that he was raping people, and they tried to demoralize him and ruin his career. And he said, "Fine, then I'm not going to fight for you guys anymore, and I'm I'm going to pull away from that and start all these businesses and companies, which he did, and he took the money that he made from his fights. He had like $50 million and he turned that into almost like 500 billion now. And he's got like 3 or 4, he's a whiskey company, a clothing company, a bunch of other stuff. And then they went back to him and begging him to come back to fight. So now he's coming back again. So he went away from them and he literally had a video that said, look, you come after me because you're going to try and do this to me, then I'm out. And he went away from them and got his money into a place where they couldn't get a control of him. And he refused and fought against them and had a bunch of money. So he fought against them, trying to ruin him and his family. And he won the cases, and then it all went away and they got quiet. He stayed away from them and he made even more money. And now they want him to come back and fight for him. And they had to make peace with him because they were losing money. He was the highest paid and the highest revenue for the UFC whenever he showed up to fight. And because he was gone, people started tuning them out. So they weren't watching as much. I don't pay for their pay-per-view. And they went from $29.99 for a pay-per-view to $79.99 when the syndicate over here took control of them. The mafia took control of them. Dana White is still the CEO of the company, but he sold it. He's still the president. So he's still on, but it's not. They took took that away from him basically to keep the company running. I don't know what he did behind the scenes there, but I don't know if it was by his choice or not, but he's made peace with what he's doing and he's still a great man. And people tried to come after him because he lets his fighters say whatever they want. And they're like, how dare you? Do you rein those guys in when they start talking crap about people being gay or trans people? And he's like, I don't tell anybody what the fuck to think. And I love that about Dana White because he refused. And that's why I don't think that he did it because they took control of him, because Dana White's not the kind of person. He was like, I don't tell any of these people who fight here for the UFC what they can and can't say or what they can and can't think. Everyone here has their own voice, and I encourage that. And there's nobody here that's going to be fired because they don't agree with your agenda. And so you guys can just screw off. And he stayed that way consistently. And a lot of people don't like him for it, but he doesn't care because the world loves that sport and they love Dana White because he's taken a stand. One person who almost lost everything, he and his brother put up their own money to start that company. And they were going out of business, man. And they got him on the air. They paid. You should go back and I watched this live and didn't know it at the time. Saw the interviews after that, but when I saw it live, they were going to be out of business, and they were put up. They went to this company to get on the air, and they paid these guys like $20 million to air them, to show their product. The guys fighting on the air, and the two fighters were Stephan Bonner and and I can't remember the other guy's name. I can see his face, can't think of his name. They were fighting because they just went through their camp, which was the Ultimate Fighter, and they were fighting to see who was going to get the 6-figure contract by winning the fight. And they put on one of the greatest fights in the history of the world. And I remember watching it, and I turned it on, and when it started, like the first round, I was calling everybody I know saying, oh my God, you need to turn this on. This is like the greatest fight. They went from having like 500,000 people watching that show when that fight started to by the time the fight was over, 3 rounds later, or maybe it was a 5-round fight, I don't remember. They had more than 15 million people watching that show with no advertising because of word of mouth, people in the United States calling their friends and family and going, oh my God, you need to turn this on. And that was the largest rating that entire network had ever had on any show. And they got the contract. Had they not got the contract, they were dead broke because they paid that company money to air them. And he and his brother put up all the money they had. And then they turned it into that. But he refused to be used even to this day. He has that way about him where he says, no, I'm not going to kowtow because of cancel culture. Try to cancel me. I'm here because of determination and my will, and I won't back down. And he refused to do that. People that do that pay the price for doing it. You do. So it's a heavy cost, but it's usually a fleeting cost, and it changes the course of the world in the process is my point of all of this. I know I've gone on for 2.5 hours now talking about this, but small things that you do might in the short term cost you a little bit more money to, say, buy organic or stand up to the COVID shot, or stand up to the teachers and union in your area and say, no, we refuse. Eventually what happens is people start standing with you. I'm a Knight of Columbus. I was knighted. To go through the process to become knighted, once you have to be picked, because you have to have a certain nature about you. You can't be an evil person. You have to be a person in service to others, or you don't get knighted in the Knights of Columbus unless you really hide. But somebody has to vouch for you, and you have to be invited. You can go and join and become a brother knight, but to actually get knighted and get a sir title, they don't want robber knights anymore like there were back in the day with the Templars. Not all of them, but there was a percentage. You had the same percent, 14% of the population is evil. So of all the total knights, 14% of them were evil. And that gave the rest of them a bad name when they did shit like Guy de Lucion and his brother did during that debacle in the Middle East during the Crusades. That just gave them a bad name. So the knights have decided that you can't just be that way. So what you have to go through is you'll go through a school. They teach you all these traits that you need to know to become a knight, so that you are thinking like that. And it's a way of life, not a title. It's not prestige. And so you're picked. People who already are living the life that way are the ones that get picked more than others, because you're already in service to others as a being. So because of that, you're going to be picked. They're going to want you to be a knight because they want you and your character. But what they teach you, even if you're unaware of it because you don't get this teaching, is the dynamic that it's scary to stand up. It's scary to defy tyranny because not everybody can do it. Out of the total population, only 10% of the population is willing to do that. And not all 10% are in the same room at the same time. So of that 10%, it's usually 1%. You're usually 1 in 10 or less in every room. So if you're the person who will stand against tyranny at every level, you're usually alone. It's usually you and maybe 1 or 2 other people. But if you don't see someone stand before you decide to do it, you're it. And the mindset as a knight in the culture is to teach you, and you go through scenarios that I'm not supposed to talk about, but I am anyways. You go through scenarios where they don't let you know that this is happening to you. And then they put you in a scenario where you have to make a choice of either standing or not. And it doesn't matter because there's no right choice. If you don't stand, you're going to learn the lesson anyways, because they're going to keep pushing until someone does stand. I used to teach it. I had the script. I don't have it anymore, but I used to have the script to teach it. So after I became a knight, I wanted to teach it, and I got the script. And so what we do is we put you in a room, and then we give you no choice. We keep upping the ante and making people attack other people because of their creed, their color, their background, their race. And you have someone that's attacking people over and over, and they go after clergy, and they go after all these people. And somewhere there's going to be the breaking point for someone. And that's what they will keep doing it until it does happen. And if it doesn't happen on the rare occasion, then somebody who's in the crowd who's actually part of the scenario, they'll become that one person. And they teach you that if one person stands, that someone else who might be afraid that wouldn't stand on their own will now go, I'll go with him. I'll go with her. They're standing, I'm with you. But they wouldn't do it on their own because they were too afraid. So you have to overcome that fear and become that one person to lead them. And that's why you hear sayings like, speak the truth. And that's part of your oath as a knight, by the way. Speak the truth even if it leads to your death. But you hear people say, stand up and speak the truth even if your hands are shaking. Stand up and speak the truth even if your voice is shaking. Because the act of doing it is going to show someone else around you, and they'll start to do it with you. And I used that knowledge even before I was a knight. My father taught me that. So when I was becoming a knight, I saw it, and I was the first one who got annoyed, and other people stood with me. And I noticed when I was looking around that people were looking at me like, are you going to do something about this? I'm with you, but they were afraid. I could see it. So I led. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I took my son on the subway. And we got on the subway, and he says, "What are we going to do?" I said, "I want to ride down to the end of the track and come back." "Why?" "Because I want to show you something." So we got on the subway and we sat down and we started riding. And every stop, people were getting on, getting off, getting on, getting off. And I said to him, I whispered to him, "Notice that nobody's getting up for the elderly or the women. No, none of the men are just standing up. Old people are standing up. That old woman shouldn't be standing." He said, "Oh, I'll get up for her." I said, No, don't. I want to show you something." So nobody was getting up and everybody was ignoring everyone else. So I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. The next stop, I'm going to get up and I'm going to give my chair to that old woman. What I want you to do is also pick anyone that you think should be sitting down and give them your chair as well. And he said, "Why?" I said, "I want to show you something. Just do it." He said, "Okay." So the next stop, no one gave that lady her chair. And I got up and I said, "Listen, ma'am, come over here and have my seat, please." She said, No, I'm okay. I said, "Look, I'm a young man. I can stand." I said, you have been on this earth a long enough time to where you deserve to have a chair. So please. And if you don't, I'm just going to stand here and there's going to be an empty seat. So she said, "That's very kind of you, sir. Chivalry is not dead." I said, "We still exist." She sat down. My son got up and gave his chair to a pregnant woman. And we stood up and we rode to the next stop. The next stop, he said, what are you trying to show me?" I said, "Watch. At this next stop, people are going to start doing what we just did because they saw us do it." And at the next stop, when someone came on, another man got up and said, "Here, you can have my chair. Sit here." And he stood up, looked at us, looked at me and nodded. He acknowledged that I had done the right thing and now he was doing the right thing. He didn't do it for 2 stops, but after I did it, he did. From that point on, the entire way down the line and the entire way back, every time people got up and left and came on, somebody was getting up for people and allowing them to have their seat. And it was paid forward the entire time. I said, there's a very good possibility that will continue for the entire day. Because one person stood up and then another one did. And then that was what continues. So in everything that you do in your life, you say, what can one person do? I'm only one person. What you can do is one thing that other people see. Omar, I haven't talked to him for a while, but he used to tell the story of when he would go to like a Starbucks or somewhere, he would pull up and he would say, to pay for his drink, he would say, "And I also want to pay for the car behind me." And they'd be like, "Really?" "Yes." And he would pay for the car behind him. And then he would come back the next day and he would ask the cashiers, how long did that continue before it stopped? And what he found out was the standard. It stopped when the evil person who was in service to self was the next in line and someone paid for them and they would go, "Oh, okay, cool, thanks." And they would drive away and not pay for the one behind them. So the person who was self-serving would stop the whole chain of events, but everybody else would pay it forward. So I used to do the same thing in a restaurant. I would go to pay for my food and I would say, "See the table over there? I want to pay for their food too." Don't tell them until they come up here to pay or when they ask for the check. And then tell them that gentleman that was sitting over here, he paid for your dinner. And they go, "Okay, well, why?" Because I'm paying it forward. And then they would go, "Well, since we were going to pay for food, how about we pay for that person's food?" And then they started paying it forward. It always stops with the person who's self-serving when they go, "Cool, thanks, later." And they don't pay it forward because they got over. That's what they're trying to do anyway. So it's going to stop when those people are there because they're evil and they're going to do it anyways. But in everything, you can't change everyone, but you can make a difference so that other people see you make the difference. And that causes other people who are good people to then say, not everyone, but if one does it, another one will, and another one will, and another one will. And that's the lesson that you learn as a knight, that if you stand, other people will stand with you. You might think you're alone at first, and you go, "Hey, knock that off." And then if the guy attacks you, someone else is going to go, "Hey, you know what, buddy? Knock it off, pal." And then everyone else is going to start saying, yeah, no, pal, stop that. And the next thing you know, when I went through, there was 40 of us. I was the first one And I was oblivious. I just knew that somebody needs to stop this guy. I don't know who this guy is, but he was claiming to be from the Supreme Council. And I was annoyed with him. So I said, you know what, pal, I need to see your credentials because I don't know who you are. You claim that you're from there, but you don't act like a knight. And he was like, who the hell are you? And then my buddy, who was actually with me from my own church, who was in the military of the United States of America, he went, who he is the guy that's asking you to show your credentials. That's who he is. And then all of a sudden, another guy went, yeah, you know what, pal? I've had enough of you and you abusing everybody here. And then all of a sudden, all of us were walking towards the guy, and they had to grab him and get him out of the room to protect him from us because we were becoming an angry mob. And then they quieted us all down and said the whole thing was a skit and that it was designed that way to show us that lesson. And I was like, that was beautiful. I want in. So I went to my godfather and said, I want in. You guys teach this? I want in. He said, I'll give you the script and we'll get you in. And I was like, that was the greatest lesson. I'm not supposed to tell you this because it's supposed to be a secret. But it's still sound. And I knew that lesson because my father had taught it to me. So in everything, if you want the prices to change or you want the politicians to change, you have to make a change in the area that you can affect, right? Your vote, if you have one, is going to fix things. So you have to take an objective look at what's going on in the world and say, are any of these people actually doing any good? Well, no, they're probably not, because the system is designed and gamed for that 1% who believe they own the planet. Well, then how do we change the system? Well, we can't, because if you get too popular, you're right. If you get too popular, they run you over. So you have to change it without getting their attention. How do you do that? You change it in a very small way. One drop of a rain or a pebble in a pond reverbs out and touches the entire pond. You don't have to be a cannonball. You don't have to be an earthquake. You just have to be one raindrop that is consistent, that echoes out to the rest of the world. When you do something, you don't know who's paying attention. Just like you say, well, I don't know if the bad guys are watching. You don't know what good guys are watching either. Okay. So when you make that, like during COVID, I would go to places in public and they would go, sir, you need to put on a mask. Absolutely not. There is no law. It's a mandate from the governor. It's a mandate. That's a suggestion. It's not a law. I am not breaking the law. You can call the police. They're not going to come here and arrest me because I don't have a mask on. You know it and I know it. So you do what you need to do. I'm going in here and I'm going to buy some food. Otherwise, if you want me to, I won't buy any food here. And enough people do that, you won't make any money. And after this COVID thing's over, I won't come back here and I'll tell everybody about it and you'll lose money. You think that only one person doesn't make a difference? That's what you count on, is that no one's going to listen to me or anybody like me. And guess what? People saw that. And I noticed that as I was doing it, I would look around, 10% of the population was also not wearing masks and not self-distancing and rolling their eyes at everybody else. So they were still silently not saying anything, but also not complying. So it was 10% of the population. And then you had other people stand up, sheriffs over here in this state, when they were saying, we have a curfew and everybody needs to be inside by this time or we're going to arrest you. The sheriffs, 45 sheriffs across the state said, we're not going to have anybody arrest anyone over that bullshit. And the governor said, any one of you who doesn't comply will fire you. Well, it turned out that it was the majority of the sheriffs and all their deputies. So he couldn't fire them because the entire law enforcement would be out of a job. So then he shut up about it. Guess what? There was no curfew in this state. But they were trying to lock everybody down, mandated. And 10% of the population stood up and said no. And they had to concede that. And then they kept pushing every way they could. And everyone kept saying no, 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 no. And then COVID ended. When the majority of the people stood up and said, I'm done with this, they just dropped it. And COVID one day was there and the next day was gone. And they never talked about it. Just disappeared. They went from counting and telling you how many people died every day and have a running tally on every news station 24 hours a day to no longer doing that. Just one day it stopped. And they didn't tell you how many people were dying because the numbers kept getting lower and lower and lower. Do you see? So you just have to make the difference in the area that you can. You have to first take care of your own self. take care of the food that you eat, take care of your life, take care and teach your family, teach your children, teach your siblings what you can. If not, just be the example. If they think you're crazy, let them think you're crazy. They'll think you're crazy until they don't. And if they do continue to think you're crazy your entire life, it's still a win-win. Because usually the people who think you're crazy are the ones that you don't like anyway in your family. And if they get mad at you and never talk to you, no stress. That's why I don't worry about it on Facebook. Well, you're going to have people block you. Good. And I won't have to hear from them, will I? Because if they block me, I can't see them. So I don't have to worry about them. You showed me, pal. You can't see me anymore, and I can't see you anymore. So now your little world doesn't have me in it. So now you have your little world, and it's going to get shrinking smaller and smaller because I'm not blocking anybody, right? So I post what I'm going to post and say what I'm going to say and let my friends list sort itself out. The only way that I'll make a change is if I start saying something and everybody has blocked me and all of a sudden I have no friends. Then I got to reevaluate just like they do. I'll have to go, well, maybe what I'm saying is actually wrong then because nobody wants to have any part of it. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Do you see? That's what they do too. You have to realize these things. So you have to fix what you can about yourself, but you have to fix your mind. That was what The Secret was about back in the day. I should probably put my glasses on because it looks like you guys are talking and you're probably asking questions and I don't know anything about it, right? So you literally have to take care of yourself and change your mindset. The Secret, back in the day, they had a series of books and became movies, mini-series talking about how to change the process of your brain because there's so much negative that's thrown at you your entire life that it gets into your head and you have to get into your own psyche, into your own subconscious and pull out all the negative and replace it with positive. You can't just pull out the negative and leave a vacuum there. So you have to then change the way you think about yourself, getting back on point of what we were talking about before. You have to literally change how you perceive yourself, and you can't let your ego take over to where I'm the greatest in the world. You have to keep yourself humble. So you have to be objective instead of subjective with your own reality and your own self. Admit to yourself, this is shadow work that Carl Jung talked about. Admit to yourself, I'm not perfect. I probably will never be perfect. You need to know that. It's okay. Because you won't be perfect until you return to the source, which is probably the only thing that is perfection. So you're destined for your entire existence to never measure up to perfection. So how can you pretend that you are or think that you'll ever achieve it? You will, but it won't be until you're returning to the source. So you have to realize and allow yourself to not be perfect. And stop beating yourself up for not being perfect and just go, what can I do to change it to make myself better? Now your mindset has already changed. You're no longer saying, I'm the greatest in the world and denying anything that you've done wrong or doing wrong. You're now looking at yourself and going, all right, so what am I doing wrong? Try to look at yourself through the eyes of other people and then go, are they just assholes or am I the asshole? So you have to be objective about yourself. You can't do that if you're not objective about what you put into your body or what how you're treating yourself. If you're treating yourself badly because other people did, and you think bad things about yourself, how are you expected to not do the same with other people and think bad things about them or treat them badly or eat crap food and poison yourself? Because that's what they're all trying to do to you. So you have to take care of yourself and cleanse your body, cleanse your mind, cleanse yourself, and be objective and say, I'm not perfect and it's okay. I can make myself better and try to get better always. And then I can say, I'm getting better. And I see how I'm changing the mindset. I'm getting better. I will achieve this. I will achieve being healthy. I will lose weight or I will stop eating. I will get over this. I will no longer have this problem and this ailment. It's going to go away because I'm changing it. I refuse to accept it in my life and it's going away. And I won't have it anymore. And that's the way I'm living. And what's causing it? So you need to look at the causation, whether it's your mindset or what you're eating or consuming or doing to yourself. If you're a smoker and you have lung cancer, smoking, right? Sugar and cigarettes causes cancer. Look it up. So you cut the things out of your life that are causing or will cause these problems. Okay. And then you look at what do I need to do now to prevent it from happening? I was always worried. My fear was I was going to get cancer because I smoked a pack of cigarettes a day. That was my fear. I didn't want throat cancer, mouth cancer, lung cancer, brain cancer. I didn't want any kind of cancer. And that was my fear. And I realized that If I kept living that way, that fear was going to manifest. And I was going to give myself, I quit smoking. And at first it was hard. Now I don't think about it ever. Right? I quit smoking in 2013. So it's been 10 years. It's 11 years now in April. April 6th was my 11-year anniversary from no smoking cigarettes. March 3rd was my 2-year anniversary from no longer drinking alcohol. Okay. I don't think about alcohol anymore either. Even when I walk in the store, first I'd walk in the store. Same thing with when I was a type 2 diabetic, not having sugar. I walk in an aisle, walk by the aisle with a candy. I could smell the sugar. Now I don't notice it anymore. But in the beginning, I noticed all the sugar. Now I don't. Same thing. If I walked into an aisle with alcohol, I'd freak out because I'm an alcoholic. Now I can walk through there and don't even care. Don't even care. But in the beginning, it's hard. So any change is hard in the beginning. And over time, it becomes less hard because you change yourself and you change a new way of life. And that way of life is healthier. And because you're healthier, you feel better and you crave different foods. Same thing happens when you're ascending. You'll find that the stuff you read, the stuff you watch, the stuff you listen to will all change, and you'll move away from some of the things that you thought you liked. And you go, I just don't tolerate that anymore. I just don't care. I used to love horror movies. Don't watch them at all now. I used to love war movies. I'll still watch those and hand-to-hand combat. I've been in martial arts my entire life, so I still watch MMA, right? And, some people are like, that's a barbarian sport. Yeah, but it'll keep you alive. Knowing it'll keep you from getting your ass kicked or killed, okay? Same thing with knowing how to fight with weapons will keep you alive a lot longer than not knowing any of that and becoming a victim. So yeah, I'd rather not have to fight, but if you come at me and you try to murder me, there's a good possibility you're going to get killed. Why? Because I was trained my entire life to be able to do that. Didn't mean that I went out to look for it. There was a time when I was younger in my 20s, I was 21, 22 years old, and my buddy and I decided to go out a few times and try to get in bar fights. My other buddy did the same thing with his buddy. They were all in martial arts, and we didn't know it. We ran into him, this guy, Mike, and his buddy. They were both Asian. And all of a sudden, me and Dirk come walking into this bar because we couldn't get in a fight anywhere else, even when we tried. And we walk into this bar, and there's Mike and his buddy. I think his name was Jay. Hey, what are you guys doing here? We came down here to test ourselves. Did you guys come down here to try and get in a fight? Yeah, we've been doing the same thing all over the San Francisco Bay Area, and nobody wants to fight us. And they're like, us too. So we gave up. All four of us just sat there and had a few drinks and laughed that we were going to all these bars trying to get into a fight. And because we were so confident, nobody wanted to fight us. And because we wanted to use our martial arts to beat up some assholes. So then we realized that you can't do it that way. So we started, looking for people that were picking on other people, and we would go over and try to get in a fight with them. And that worked a few times, but for the most part, bullies don't want to be bullied. So as soon as they're bullying somebody and they're getting away with it, they're really chesty. But the second you stand up to them, they back off when they realize at first they try to bully you. And then when they realize that you're going to punch them in the face, like Michael, what's his name? I can't think of his name. Right, I can see his face. Boxer, famous. I can't think of his name. He said, "Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face." Right, and but it's true. So my point is that bullies do that in general. Governments, evil people are bullies, and when you call them out, at first they try to bully you, and I will run you over, and I will damage you, and I will lock you up, and I will kill you. And when you take that power from them, they all of a sudden go, hey, I was kidding. I was really not. I was kidding. So you have to learn to stand. You don't have to stand every single time. You have to learn to pick your fights. And you don't want them to escalate because you don't want to get in trouble and get arrested. So when I've talked like this before, some people were like, you're talking about wanting to start a revolution. No, not a physical going to war and trying to overthrow a government. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is change yourself, show the people around you that there's change, and then start getting involved in your neighborhood and in your if you have kids, get involved in their schools at their PTAs and start getting on the school boards and stop allowing these people who are evil to succeed, and start talking to other people. And if you get on the school board and find out you're the only one there that's not evil, start replacing the other people. Go out and find other people that will stand against them, that won't turn you into them so they won't get rid of you, and start replacing them. That's how it works. You start at the grassroots level and you start taking away power and putting it back into the hands of the people. That trickles uphill. The people that are in charge of this government right now are old. In my government in the United States, they're all in their 70s and 80s. They're only going to be around for another 5 or 10 years. They're all going to die. So the next tier is going to move up. This is why I'm a Gen Xer, and Gen Xers are warning the population. You guys are going to be in trouble when we get there. We're in our 50s. We're going to be getting there real fast. Some of us are already moving into those slots. You guys need to hope and pray, because Gen Xers are the most lethal. We have we have been so desensitized that there's no threat you can make to us. We're going to come to your house and kill your whole family, if only. Please. Because if you do that and I film it, I can kill you while you're attempting it, and then I can show the police. He came into my house, kicked in the door, and they were invading, and I shot him dead. Here's the film footage to prove it. Oh, and I get to stay alive, and I get out of jail. We're that person in this generation. We're good with it. Let's go. We like a stand-up fight. That's why I loved the character in the 13th Warrior. His name was Herger. And he was the shortest guy in the entire of all the Vikings. Instead of being 6'3" and 6'4", he was 6 foot. So he looks like he's about 5'4", and probably in reality he was probably about 5'4". But he's supposed to be about 6 foot. He was the runt in the Vikings. And they literally were fighting against the Vendôme, which means it's an ancient Viking word that meant Grendel. And that word is older than that, and it meant grinder. And so the Vendôme, it was the fabled, this is the story of Beowulf fighting against the Grendel. And there was this whole bunch of people, and they called it the fireworm because it would come down the mountain whenever they attacked, and it wiped out whole villages. And it was a fire, and it looked like a fire dragon. And so they told Ahmed, who was the 13th warrior who came with them, the whole story about the 13th warrior is true, because the only reason that we know of the story of Beowulf is because this character, Ahmed ibn Fahlan, came from Arabia in exile and actually wrote the story of what happened on his journey when he met Beowulf, and took it back to the Middle East with him. And eventually people, when they found in the Middle Eastern library, found the scrolls and brought it to the forefront of back into Europe. And so the whole world knows the story. It's the only reason we still know it, because no one else knew it. Ahmed wrote it down. So it's a true story. And literally they were hiding inside their fort, getting ready to fight the fireworm that was coming down through the mist. And they were looking out over the ramparts, and Ahmed saw this little girl out in the field running. She didn't make it into the fort, and she was going to be killed by the fire dragon, by the fireworm. And so he said, "Open the gate." And he ran over and jumped on his horse, and they were trying to open the gate, and he just ran at the gate. And so they all ducked, and he jumped over the rampart with his horse and rode out to pick the little girl up. And they were all still trying to get the gate open to get him back in so they could reclose the gate. And he picks up the girl, and when he did, he turned around on his horse. He's got the girl on the back of his horse holding onto her, and he turns around to get a look at this fireworm, and it turns out it's cavalry. And he sees that, and he rides back into the fort, and he gives the little girl off, and they skirt her off to be protected by her mother. And he looks at Beowulf and Herger and the other Vikings, and he says, "So you saw the fireworm?" And he says, "It's not a fireworm, it's cavalry." And he goes, and they all look at him, and Beowulf looks at him, and he says, "Cavalry?" And he says, "Yeah." And Herger looks at him, and he goes, "Cavalry? I much rather prefer a dragon." Right? And he starts laughing. So his guile and his attitude was, bring it, even if it is a dragon. And then when he found out it was just men, cavalry, he was like, "That's it. I'd rather prefer a dragon," because then the glory of fighting the dragon. And he was geared up and ready to stand and fight a dragon. And he finds out it's just cavalry. And he's like, okay. So in the middle of the fight, the same Viking is fighting, and they're overwhelmed. There's only 13 warriors and a bunch of villagers, and they're fighting against an army. But they're warriors like the 300 fighting against Xerxes' army. There was 300 warriors who that was their profession. So the Vikings are fighting, and Ahmed's fighting for his life, and he's scared because he still thinks they're magical. And then he realizes after he kills one, they're just men in costumes. They're wearing skins of a bear. So they thought they were this mystical creature because that's what the Vikings told him. And so then he realized they're just men. And then he was totally changed, and he just started like hacking them up. And he turns around at one point, and he looks, and Herger is standing there, and he just got done killing 3 or 4 of them. Their bodies all around him. And he turns and looks at Ahmed, and Ahmed looks at him, and he says to him, "You okay?" And he says, "They're just a man." And he says to Herger again, so looks at Ahmed and says, "That's okay, little brother. There are more." And he points. He turns around. There's a bunch more coming, and Ahmed starts fighting. That calmness of him being that type of person, to stand up and not be afraid of anything, and to not fear that, calmed Ahmed over and over with his levity. And the character, they don't weigh this out in Michael Crichton's movie, but in the poem, he was doing that because he knew that Ahmed was afraid. And the same with the villagers. So he was acting as if it was just nothing and it didn't matter. It's all right, little brother. There are more. Like, you're not going to miss out. There's more to kill. And because of that, Ahmed looked at him like, this man is crazy. And then later, when they were standing and Beowulf yelled, "Everybody on me," and he threw him a big pike, a big pole, and said, "Put your foot on it and stand." And Ahmed was again just looking at Herger and looking at Beowulf like, they're coming at us on horseback, and there's 100 of them, and we're just standing here. And again, both of those men, Beowulf and Herger, stood emotionless, not afraid, determined, and it calmed everybody else around them by their example. And in truth, in their minds, they weren't sure if they were going to survive, but they believed that the Allfather was the one that was in charge of their fate. So they fought with vigor, and that's the way the Viking religion was. But the point of this was they stood, even though they knew they were fighting an entire army. Leonidas in the 300 did the same. And that's why I made that quote about Donald Trump. He didn't really say that, but I put that up before the debate, that you're going to, CNN's doing the debate. They hate you, and they're going to mute your microphone. And one of his advisors says, "Sire," because in the 300, when they got ready and they fought the first battle in Thermopylae against the Xerxes army, they defeated them, and they were going through and killing anybody who was injured. And one of the guys, Xexos, one of the men, comes running up, and Leonidas is standing there eating an apple and talking to his general. And he says, "Take your breath, boy, and catch your breath." And he says, "They're sending an emissary, and they want you to meet with him." And he says, "Well, then I should go and talk to them." And his general says, "Sire, it's a trap. If you go down there, they're going to kill you." And he says, he takes a bite in the movie. It's great. He takes a bite of the apple and talking with his mouth full. "There's no reason we can't be civil." And then he says to him, "Sire, if they're going to kill you." And he says, "Let's hope that they're that stupid. Let's hope that we get that lucky." That is what he said. That's in history. And then he went out and they didn't kill him. But later, when they fought, they did kill him. Because of that, it united all of Greece, and Greece defeated that army. And not only that army, but they took over the known world in revenge, took over the entire kingdom that Xerxes owned, which was the known world. Okay? So Leonidas standing and dying set the example and got everybody else to stand, and the Greeks conquered the world, and our entire world society is changed because the Greeks owned it. Same with the Romans. So the point here is, the parable that I'm giving you is, again, you see someone standing up against this tyranny, even when it led to their death. And it's real. It happened in real life, but it changed the course of the world and history. There's a man, and then I'll go for the night because it's 6 o'clock. I'll tell you another parable. During the Second World War, and I bring this up because the D-Day was just June 6th, when America and the Allies landed in Normandy and freed France and was the turning point of the war, the majority of the turning point of the war, and they defeated the Nazis from that point on. During the Battle of the Bulge, you have, first of all, the Battle of Bastogne, where the 82nd Airborne, the 101st Airborne Rangers were stuck behind enemy lines and fought when they were surrounded. And by the time that the Americans broke through to free their men, they were fighting with hand-to-hand combat, because the Germans and them had ran out of ammunition from shooting each other, and they were literally using sticks and stones and rocks and shovels and hitting them, stabbing with bayonets and fighting. But they won the day. They refused to surrender. And at that same time, during the Battle of the Bulge, not at Bastogne, but in another place, one man who was in a foxhole with his company, when the Germans in the Battle of the Bulge came forward, most of the men ran in fear because of all the tanks and the soldiers that were coming across the field. And he picked up a machine gun by himself. And I tell you the story because the man is still alive to this day. And they just celebrated him. And I remember hearing this story when I was a boy. They just celebrated him again because he's still alive over in Normandy during that celebration of the D-Day invasion, that he won several awards because by himself, he went from foxhole to foxhole. He had to, because he picked up a machine gun, and by himself, he held off literally hundreds, if not thousands of Germans by himself with one machine gun. He would stand up and he would shoot until the machine gun was hot. And then he set it down and picked up another machine gun and started shooting. And then he got up and ran over to another foxhole when they started trying to shell the foxhole he was in with the cannons from the tanks. And he would stand up again and he would shoot the Germans every time they got up and started running. He would stand up with a machine gun and he would shoot them until the machine gun ran out of ammunition, and pick up another one, do the same thing, and then load that one up while he was ducked down while they were running. And he stood up and he did that over and over and over and over. And he actually, by himself, held off an entire regiment of Germans and disabled 3 tanks and saved that area from the invasion by himself. One man who refused to run away and then refused to be killed. That happens more than people know. Audie Murphy during the Second World War did the same in another place. One good old boy from the Skokie in America did the same thing. So you have these characters in history who stood up even in the face of their own death and won the day. Look at King Arthur. When you look at the real story, especially the one with Clive Owen, they were down to like 5 knights. And an entire army came, and they had peasants and farmers who could fight but were not professionals, and they were able to rally and lead them with their might and their minds and their tactics to fight off an entire army. Same thing happened over in England with Henry V, fighting at the Battle of, I was going to say Hastings, but it wasn't. I'm trying to remember the Agincourt, where they were outnumbered like 10-1, half starving, fighting against the French, and they only lost 28 men. 28 English died in that battle, and they killed 10,000 French. True story. True story. That's scary. Same thing with in Braveheart with William Wallace. And then after his death with Robert the Bruce fighting against the English, against Edward Longshanks. Same thing. They were starving, half starved, outnumbered 10-1, and they fought at Bannockburn, and they won the day against an overwhelming army. You find that this people who have right on their side and are willing and smart about what they're doing, or if they're willing to fight even to the death, and they have sound tactics. You don't have to fight in a physical war to do it. Mahatma Gandhi, he got rid of the English out of India and won the freedom of India by teaching them to say no and sit down. Do you see? Small scale, you can make a difference that has a chain reaction that you may not know about. that a larger scale may change the world and the universe. You have to trust in that. So first you have to fix yourself and work on yourself and be the better example. And then you start getting involved at the same time to help watchdog, and you become, people see you, and then they start standing with you. And maybe not, you may not see it, but if someone in public sees you do something like that, they see you, that changes them. Do you see? So you have to say, we can't change it from the top, but we can vote. We have to vote, and we have to figure that out. But we can also change it from the bottom and change the culture as that culture moves up. And you have to then say, it may not get fixed in my lifetime. But if I leave that behind, if I don't leave any legacy behind, if I leave behind one other person who will make a difference for another person, that propagates that. Where that leads, I may never learn. The words that I say, I have no idea how many of you around the world it's going to change or make any difference to you in your lives. But I keep saying them because it's the right thing to do. So if in any way it affects you guys around the world and you make some small change in your life for the better, and that reverbs out from you to another person or another two people, and that continues on a long enough timeline, even if it's 50 or 100 years from now, I have to think, I have to know that I'm making a difference. And you have to be aware of that. You have to tell yourself, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, no matter what anybody thinks. I'm bettering myself, and so people see that. So I'm not telling people, do as I say, not as I do. I'm doing it too. So I'm not asking anyone to do anything I'm not already trying to do for myself. And I'm not asking anyone to do anything. I don't ask anyone to do anything. What I ask you to do is to think for yourself, to question everything. That's it. Question me. The very least, question what I say. Don't believe me. And go down that rabbit hole on your own. Because that's going to lead you on the right path. Okay, so don't believe anything that I've said to you. Assume I'm lying to you and I'm making it all up because I want something from you. I just haven't announced it to you yet. And wait around. You can ask Cassie, who she waited for like a year watching me, interacting with me, waiting for me to show my true colors because she didn't want to trust. She wasn't sure. This guy can't be true. This can't be real. It's got to be some motive that he's got going on. I don't chase anybody. I don't come after you. I don't ask you if you leave. I don't chase you and ask you why. Everybody can do whatever they want. You have to be around me because you want me around. Okay? I'm the same way with anyone. I won't turn you away. If I ignore you, you'll know it. Okay? But I try to give everybody as much time as I can when they need me. When I can. If I'm not overwhelmed by everybody wanting me all at once. I'll get back to everybody when I can. And you'll find that I'm consistent. And after a year, she was like, maybe he's legit. I should maybe give him a little bit of, if she's still in the audience, she'll tell you that. She was here earlier. I don't know if she still is. I haven't seen her say anything in a bit. But I was unaware of that. I assumed she did that, but she actually confessed that to me. Dude, I watched you for like a year. I don't know. Because I said to her when we were on air, when we had her on air, we're going to work together in the future. And she was like, what? Who's this guy who's telling me that? Right? What does he think? What the? We're going to work together. And now she realizes why I said it, how I knew it, and that I was right. Right? But when I first said it to her, she was like, excuse me? Okay. Yeah. I've said that to other people too. And some of them tend to go, oh, wow. Okay. And I just wait. I don't in any way try to chase after anybody. Don't do that. Because you have to make a decision. So when people come to me and say, do you know that so-and-so's talking shit about you? Probably. Okay. You don't care? No. They're saying hideous things. Well, then everyone's got a choice to make. They either believe that person or they don't. Well, you're not going to defend yourself? Nope. No, I'm not. The only way I defend myself is if I have to in a court of law because I might go to jail. If somebody wants to believe, if someone says he's a pedophile and you want to believe it, okay, it doesn't make me a pedophile. It just means you think that because someone told you that. Someone says that I'm, he's ego and he thinks he's Jesus. Have you ever heard me say that? I never claimed that. I claim the opposite. I'm not here to sacrifice myself to save everybody on this earth. I'm not that angel. Not that. Not here for that. I don't have delusions of grandeur. What I'm here to do is try and give you back the memory that you've lost, that you're free. And then to tell you what exactly that you're free for, to do, and how to look for it. You don't have to believe me. Here's the tools. You either use them or you don't, but know that they're here. So when I give tools to people, they're always there. So I do that. Again, the one little drop in the bucket or the drop in the ocean. It's out there, and the person can always come back to those tools that I tried to give them, even if it's 10 years from now. They'll go, what was that guy trying to tell me? Maybe I should look at what he had said all those years ago. And then they go back and they reevaluate it and go, wow, man, why didn't I listen to this 10 years ago? Because now it sounds a little different because they've grown. Because I had a difference on them and it changed their perspective, and other people did too. And they learned and they progressed and they became a different person. And then now all of a sudden they look back and they go, wow, that's what I want to do. That's why I'm writing my book, which is going to be coming out in the next month or two, and get that out to the world. If it doesn't sell 1 trillion copies, I'll be okay with that. I'm expecting it to sell a couple of billion copies, maybe 1 trillion copies eventually. But like everything else that somebody does that is good for the whole planet, it usually gets really popular about 100 years after they die. But it will be out there in the ether, like all my shows and everything I say and everything I post. My book will be out there for people to pick up generations down the road. Someone will find it in some library somewhere or online somewhere, unless the entire societal structure fails and there is no record of it and everything burns down. Then it won't matter anyway, because the population will be far less, and it's going to be the people that are going to be paying attention to themselves anyways. See my point? Otherwise, it's going to be there for people to find. That's my mark. That's what I'm leaving for the world, is my knowledge. And if that helps anyone, I did my job. If it helps no one, it's helping me. Right? So I'm gaining from doing this just because I'm bettering myself. Serving is that example. Whether that helps anybody on the planet, I don't know. If it does, it's a bonus. So when I see faces in the audience and you guys return more than once or twice and you're still here, I feel that I'm helping in some way because you're still tuning in to listen to what I have to say. So I'm making you think enough to where you want to come back and hear what I have to say. That's a good sign for me, because I'm not just talking to myself. If there were nobody here every time I was live, I'd have to question then, well, maybe I shouldn't even be talking anymore because there's literally nobody here but me. And that's usually when people disappear, when they don't have anybody. Most people who are about themselves and money wouldn't do it. It says there's 6 people here right now. Do you know how many people wouldn't continue talking if they were in service to self and doing a show every day if there were only 6 people showing up? Most everybody who was evil. Fuck this, there's no profit. I'm wasting my time. I could be doing something else to where I will be getting a benefit from it. That's because they think that way. Do you see? When I tune into a show and I see 2 or 3 people on that show, that's it. And then I go back and look at their other shows and they've been doing that. And there's only been 3 to 5 to 10 people on their show when they're live and they continue to do it. That's somebody who's motivated. They're doing it because they're trying to give back to the world, even if nobody's tuning in when they're live. They're putting it out there for people to find. I respect those people far more than anyone else because they are not doing it because they're expecting to have 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people while they're live. They're doing it for the betterment of the world. They're putting it out there. Nobody is showing up to listen to it live, but I notice that people pick it up and watch it later. Okay? So that's why they do it. And they'll tell you. So whenever I hear somebody saying, if I get one person that I'm helping, I'm doing my job. And that's their mentality. And they're not just saying that because they're trying to get popular. Those people I respect because I know that their motivation is to serve the all. Their motivation is in service to others. And they're trying to give information from their perspective that could help and resonate with somebody out there. That's all we can do. There's probably a billion maybe not a billion. There's got to be 1 million people out of the 7.9 billion humans that are doing exactly what I'm doing. That's good, because that means that there's that many people that have what kind of reach around the world. Do you see? It's still far less than if you were falling into the religion of evil. I could probably have 1,500 to 5,000 people live if I just talked politics and took a stand on one party or the other, one side or the other, and yelled it and said the other, pointed and did the same thing that the news agencies did and did it just my way. And then I could have all kinds of money and be rich, because that's what those people get really popular, and their podcasts are huge and they get thousands of followers, and they're only toting the party line to get paid. That's why they do it. But they still serve a purpose, right? So are they helping people? Some of them are doing it for that purpose. Some don't care and they're just doing it for the money, but they make you want to think they care, right? But you're going to see that those people aren't talking to the people, they're talking at the people. It's the difference, right? You learn who those people are just by watching their demeanor when they're talking, right? Like Joe Rogan, he's not in it because he's just trying to be the most popular guy and sell the most podcasts and get the most money. He's got other endeavors. He's got businesses and companies, and he's got a great job in the UFC getting paid a lot of money. His podcast is popular because he's a legit, real guy. He's not arrogant. He's not egotistical. He's just trying to figure it out. He's the average Joe, and his name happens to be Joe on top of it. Okay? So no one will ever claim that he is toting a progressive or conservative party line. Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan's man. I have more respect for him and now than I did when I first heard of him. Because the first time I saw him when he was on his television show, when he was in his late 20s and I was in my early 20s. And I was like, okay, this guy's just some TV host. And then as time went on and I started seeing him in other endeavors and realized that he was making his way in life, I started becoming a fan of Joe Rogan. And then hearing him at the UFC fights, I was like, oh, and now he's doing this. And he's apparently he's working out and he's, tattooed, and he's an MMA guy too. And okay, I respect that even more because he's martial arts, right? And so we had something in common. Never met him. And then I started hearing his podcast. Wasn't quite sure I liked him, and he was making some statements early on, and I was like, I don't know if I like this. And then I started watching him, and I was like, no, he's evolving, and I see him evolving, and now he's sitting back and he's talking to people. He talks to anybody, doesn't care who, and he doesn't care what he talks about. He's talking about stuff that people want to hear, even though they try to cancel him every other week for something that he said. He doesn't care. You don't hear him coming out and apologizing. You don't hear him pulling stuff. It's just like, hey, it's out there. It's out there. You either pull me or you don't. If you guys don't think I make enough money, I'll go to another company. I'll go to, and so because of that, he's still legit, and he's bringing this words to people. And some of it I listen to and go, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. But the rest of it, I'm like, can you believe he had that guy on there? That's freaking cool. Nobody would have that guy on. Terrence Howard, right? Did I say his name right? Lawrence, whatever. I can't even think of his name right now. I need to get off here. I've been talking too long. Literally, no one would have him on. They all think he's crazy, right? But he did. And he was tripping on it. So guys like that, the reason he got popular isn't because he was selling out for money. He got popular because he was letting people say what nobody else would let them say. And he was legitimately looking at it, not going from the eyes of a producer or the eyes of one party or the other. He's outside of that, and he's the average Joe. And I hate to say that because his name is Joe, right? But he's the average guy. And because of that, he's legit. And he stays humble that way. He doesn't have to be ours. I've never met him. So maybe he's an asshole in real life. But as far as I can tell from his demeanor, he's not an arrogant guy. He's like, what the fuck? You know how many times he says that on his show? What the fuck? Right? So he is legitimately looking at the world from a perspective of wonderment and amazement still. Where you get these guys on the news and they're just yap, telling them what the teleprompter tells them to say. Joe Rogan doesn't have a teleprompter. He's just there winging it like I am here, but he has got somebody sitting with him and they're drinking and smoking his cigars and sometimes smoking ganja or whatever, eating edibles sometimes and just talking, man. And he's super popular for doing it. And they can't stop him, even though they tried. But he's just legit. And that's why people are watching his show. Some of these people are ego and they're about money and they don't care what they have to say. That's why I love that guy put that meme together, that video together, where he said 97%. It's true. You can look it up. 97% of all scientists agree with the person who's paying them money. Okay. So that means that they're propagating, they're giving you the spiel of what they're being paid to tell you. So the people that are giving them money are the ones that the people are giving them money because they know that he's going to do what I tell him to do. Sometimes it's we both agree on the same thing, and that's why I'm giving you money. But we have to be the ones who figure that out. All right, guys, I got to go. 6:30. I got to get some dinner ready. I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys next week. But I will, as soon as I get a timeline for the book, I'll put that in the chat groups and on my page. But I'm going to have copies of it in 7 to 10 days. That means that it's going to be out on the planet somewhere around then as well. So I'm going to find out. Today's Friday, so I won't find out until Monday now because my publisher doesn't work on the weekends. I'll get a hold of them on Monday and find the link of when we can have you guys who want to buy it, pre-order it. And I will put that out as soon as I get that information. And I'll have a book to show you guys. And I'll probably set up some raffles, something to do where I'm going to go on, I don't know where yet, live. I have to have somebody produce it for me so that I can talk and not have to sit here and do the producing and talk and read the chat at the same time. So I'll be getting that set up as well so other people can do that. And we'll put together somewhere where literally we'll figure out some raffle to get a copy of my book for those of you who show up. So that'll be kind of cool. But like I said, I haven't started working with anybody on that yet to set that up. And I know that I'm going to have to set it all up because it's not like people are calling me up and going, hey, I want to have you on my show. And we'll do that. Although, you know, like Augie for his show. Now, as soon as I get the book and that information, I'll let him know. And he's going to have me back on to do that, basically. So we'll get that out there. You guys will see me flooding the market with links to my book as soon as I have those links to flood to you guys. But hopefully next week I'll have a copy to hold up in front of you guys so you can see my book. And I'll be taking pictures of it as soon as I get it in the mail, and it'll be linked on every platform that I have, me sitting there holding that book up with a smile pointing at it. All right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great weekend. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show.